Performing Arts at the Manning School of Academics and Arts, and this is our Elite Choir residence, and we will be performing for you today for about 15 minutes. Thank you so much for having us.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'd like to call this meeting of November 9th, 2023 to order. Roll call, please, Ms. Savada.
Ms. Miller?
Here.
Ms. Parker?
Here.
Ms. Reed?
Here.
Ms. Schooley?
Here.
Dr. Varda?
Here.
We're all here. All right, I want to first extend a very special thank you to Shauna Mendez, performing arts leader at the Manning School and the Manning School Choir, for sharing a preview of their upcoming performance at the Colorado Music Educators Conference in January. Hopefully you were all in the room to hear that. It's phenomenal, and it just brings joy to the beginning of, well, really anything, but a lot of joy to the beginning of board meetings. And it's always, always, always such a pleasure to hear our students perform. I'd also like to thank our live simultaneous Spanish interpreters for joining us tonight, as they do for our meetings all the time. And you can find our live stream link through the district's website. Finally, before we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd just like to take a moment to recognize and honor all of our veterans in the district and in our community. This weekend is Veterans Day. And individuals who have served our country in the armed forces. I don't know if you feel comfortable raising your hand so we can honor you. And I know Mr. Drew, you can just stand up and we'll honor. We have at this time about 1% of our community members volunteer for the armed forces. And so I just extend a heartfelt gratitude to all of you that have served and are currently serving, and to military family members who also make a sacrifice for their service. So thank you, all of you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, is there a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda?
I move to approve tonight's agenda as presented.
Whoops, is there a second?
Second.
Any objections? Hearing none, it has been moved and seconded to approve the agenda for the board meeting of November 9th, 2023 is presented. Roll call, please, Ms. Savada.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Ms. Schooley?
Yes.
Dr. Varda?
Yes.
All right, the agenda is approved. Every month, the Board of Education has the distinct pleasure of recognizing students, staff, community members, and schools for their achievements and contributions to our community. Additionally, the board publicly recognizes special events and significant issues by issuing proclamations. In the month of November, we are commemorating National Family and School Partnership in Education, National Substitute Educators Day, National Education Support Professionals Day, National School Psychology Week, and National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week. We encourage you to read the Jeffco School Board's proclamations, which can be found as part of the consent agenda in board docs. Now we get on to the really good stuff of honors and recognitions. Our first recognition of the evening will be presented by Director Parker.
It is my distinct pleasure to give this award, because I had the pleasure of attending the Career Links activity that took place just a week or so ago. So I would like to invite the Jeffco Career Links team, including Heather Waldron, Jenny Lammers, Devin Parson, and Miranda Ziegler, to the front of the room to receive the Jeffco Thrives Award. The Jeffco Career Links program is part of our Career and College Pathways programming that acts as a resource hub for the students, educators, industry partners, community leaders, and families. The goal of the Career Links team is to provide interactive experiences for students to engage in career exploration and career planning both in and out of the classroom. Ultimately, the team strives to position Jeffco students to be career ready, poised to provide a sustainable workforce in the local industries and for successful futures. Jeffco Career Links hosted the Jeffco 10th Grade Career Expo on October 18th at Gold Crown. Through the event, 3,000 students had the opportunity to explore nearly 100 unique industries. 80% of the students who attended said that it was a valuable experience and would help them consider next steps in their careers. The team spent countless hours, well beyond their regular schedules, to meet with industry and schools in order to make the Career Expo a success. Please join us in recognizing our Jeffco Career Links team. We honor you for creating the extraordinary experiences students need and deserve today and helping our district achieve its mission of preparing all Jeffco students for bright and successful futures as local and global citizens.
We were trying not to photobomb your picture, but it may end up looking very awkward that we're slouching, so we'll see what happens there. The Board of Education is pleased to honor and recognize our next award recipient, Miss Marissa Beck, a student at Denison Elementary School and finalist at the 2023 Young American Center for Financial Education Youth Biz Stars competition for her business, Funny Balloons. Miss Marissa, will you please come to the front of the boardroom so we can recognize you? All right, now I'm going to talk about you for just a second, okay? Sorry. This October, Marissa competed and was named a finalist at the Denver-based Young Americans for Financial Education Spotlight on Youth Biz Stars competition. It's a mouthful. As a pioneer in youth financial education, the Young Americans for Financial Education's signature hands-on approach to teaching personal finance, economics, and business has been embraced by parents and teachers for over 20 years. Each year, Colorado's top youth business owners, ages 6 to 21, are invited to apply to the Spotlight on Youth Biz Stars business competition. These young entrepreneurs complete an online application. A panel of independent judges then selects a winner and 2 finalists in each age category. Winners receive up to $5,000 and finalists receive up to $500. Winners are also paired with a leading business owner from the Colorado community. With her business, Funny Balloons, which I really want to check out, Marissa was named a finalist in the 6 through 11 age category. Funny Balloons LLC, please, yes, is a student-run business in Golden, Colorado, owned and operated by Marissa. You can schedule Marissa to come to your child's birthday party and design made-to-order balloon creations and paint temporary henna tattoos. Oh man, Marissa. Let's give a round of applause to Marissa for being a winner at the 6 through 11 competition. Okay, now I will turn it over to someone else, to Director Reed.
All right, thank you very much. And this is a really, I think, special thing to be able to present tonight. For the next celebration of the evening, it is my pleasure to invite some special guests to the podium to honor our colleague and fearless leader, President Stephanie Schooley. Will our Wheat Ridge School contingent please come to the podium?
It's been a while, Drew. Good evening. I'm Lynn Torr, Community Superintendent for Golden and Wheat Ridge areas. Tonight, I am honored to be joined by some of my wonderful Wheat Ridge area principals. I have Miss Lisa Mahana at Wheat Ridge High School, Amanda Pouliot at Everett Middle School, and Tim Carlin at Peak Expeditionary. It is our privilege tonight to recognize Stephanie Schooley for her service to Jeffco Public Schools. Elected to the Jeffco Board of Education in 2019 as a representative for Director District 3, Stephanie served as secretary and then president of the board. Stephanie's term on the board included writing out a global pandemic and dealing with its after effects. And while much of the world shifted around Stephanie during this time, she never shifted.
Stephanie came to the board with a passion, a dedication, and a steadfast commitment to improving the lives of Jeffco students and making a difference in her community. She leaves this board having done just that. Stephanie will always answer the call to be on stage to provide inspiration, but where she shines most is in one-on-one or in small groups where her genuine care and authentic self shine brightest.
Stephanie led this district through the incredibly hard but necessary work of closing schools. She did that with deep personal knowledge, understanding, and empathy for how this work impacts a community. She also fully understood her role on this board and responsibility for all of Jeffco and each of its students. That responsibility carried through to her work to bring this board in line with common best practices. She worked alongside her colleagues to update sometimes decades-old board policies, not my words, and with the superintendent to institute routines to ensure the board has the knowledge and information they need to make critical decisions.
It's important to call to attention the fact that Jeffco board directors are volunteers, and being on the Jeffco board is just one of Stephanie's many jobs. Stephanie, thank you for being a fierce advocate for students, teachers, and staff, school leaders, and district leadership. Jeffco is a better district for your service. Please join us in celebrating Stephanie.
All worth it now. Oh yeah, that's right. That was a genuine smile too. All right, we don't know what's happening next, but I'm turning it over to Dr. Varda.
Actually, you're not.
No, I'm not. Never mind.
There's more.
Yeah.
All right. For the next celebration of the evening, it is my pleasure to invite some special guests to the podium to honor our colleague, Director Susan Miller. Dr. Hill and Ms. Van Scoik, please come to the podium.
Good evening. So we didn't know we could break our speech up, but we're going to ad-lib a little bit. So I'm Donetris Hill, Community Superintendent for Lakewood and Alameda, and also last year I was a Community Superintendent that served in Jefferson along with Director Miller. And joining me is the lovely Miss Susie Van Scoik, Principal at Alameda Junior Senior High School. We are pleased tonight to recognize Susan Miller for her service to Jeffco Public Schools. Elected to the Jeffco Board of Education in 2019, Susan has served as Director of District 4 for the past 4 years. Like President Schooley, Susan's term on the board included riding out a global pandemic and dealing with its after effects. From her first day of service to her last, Susan's priority has always been Jeffco students. Her personal commitment to high quality education, along with her professional expertise in the field, continuously comes through in her questions on important topics like student achievement and financial stewardship. And I'm going to give a moment now for Ms. Van Scoik to come and share something that's very dear to her.
I would say dear to both of us, because as we speak, a fabulous Strive community clinic for the families in the Alameda area is being constructed. And I'm going to invite you to the ribbon cutting. Thank you so much for all you've done for our community.
Over the past 4 years, Susan has consistently worked within the confines of her role as a board member to make her decisions align with policy, raise issues around financial sustainability, and advocate for her stakeholder interests and investments, such as the Strive Clinic. Through the recent school closure process, Susan served as a sense maker to constituents throughout the school district. She was willing to meet with anyone who asked, even at the expense sometimes of me saying, we don't need to meet with them. But she was able to put the regional opportunities for thriving schools work into a context that included her long history with the district as a parent, as well as her professional experience with districts experiencing similar challenges across the nation. Susan is always looking for that explicit link between district priorities and investments and student outcomes. She has high expectations for Jeffco schools and constantly pushes on district leadership to provide every child with the education that they deserve. We see the urgency in Susan's approach to board service as an indication of the possibility and potential she sees in our students, in us as leaders, and in our school district. It's a possibility and potential that we are inspired to reach. Please join us in honoring Susan for her dedicated commitment to public education and legacy of lasting impact that she leaves on the Jeffco community and all of the schools in District 4.
Okay, now we're going to turn it over to Director Varda.
Okay, for the next to final celebration of the evening, the Board of Education is pleased to acknowledge the contributions and partnership of the East Denver Food Hub in launching the Jefferson Area Food and Nutrition Pilot Program. I invite our partners from Jeffco Food Nutrition Services and the East Denver Food Hub to join us at the front of the room. In September, the Jefferson Area Food and Nutrition Pilot Program was successfully launched. Chicken and plant-based bowls with corn and black bean salsa were part of the specialty crafted menu offered at Jefferson Junior Senior, Lumberg, and Edgewater. The district received very positive feedback. Our Jeffco Food Nutrition Services team began their partnership with East Denver Food Hub in September as well and received items from a number of local farms to be served at pilot sites throughout the inaugural week. The fruits and veggies at this pilot site looked and tasted amazing. I wasn't there, but I believe it. It was through this partnership with East Denver Food Hub and their connections to local farms that students were able to eat fresh, delicious, local produce packed with nutrients. Cucumbers and cherry tomatoes from Hoffman Farms, peaches from Bluebird Organic Fruit Company, pears from Fuller Orchards. The pilot launch was also made possible by our Jeffco kitchen managers and kitchen team members. A lot of work went into introducing these new menu items to our students. We appreciate all the care put into making this possible. Please join us in celebrating the East Denver Food Hub, as well as Jeffco's food and nutrition services, for maximizing a great partnership that is fostering health and wellness in our community.
Should we put them over here from our local farmers?
So we are gifted with fresh vegetables from which farm?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, lots of farms. And we're gonna have them out to share, I believe. Yeah, so thank you for bringing those.
These are
Yeah.
free to anyone who would like to have.
Nice. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
And now over to Director Miller.
Yes, this is very special. For the final celebration of the evening, the Board of Education is pleased to acknowledge the contributions and partnership of Jeffco Eats. I would like to invite Barbara Moore, Executive Director of Jeffco Eats, to join us at the front of the room. Thank you, Barbara. Jeffco Eats is a nonprofit organization of volunteers that Mary and I actually participated with a few weeks ago that strategically functions as a year-round weekend food program provider in partnership with Food Bank of the Rockies and the Jefferson County Department of Education Title I Department. Jeffco Eats' mission is strong yet simple, helping students and families eat by providing food over the weekends to ensure that no child goes hungry in Jeffco Title I schools, GAP schools, Section 8 apartments, rec centers, parks, and Head Start programs. In the words of Executive Director Barb Moore, every child deserves food for every meal, period. Amen. Jeffco Eats is unique, working to solve the root issues of hunger through delivering directly to schools, providing self-stable pantry foods, produce, and snack items. Jeffco Eats pantries have increased to 18 available pantries, serving Jeffco schools from Arvada to Lakewood. Created to meet unmet needs for weekend food to students in low-income schools and families, Jeffco Eats program sustains our families in greatest need. The weekly food offering includes food not just for the student, but also for the family. Many of the students and families served are families experiencing housing insecurity. Please join us in celebrating and thanking Jeffco Eats for maximizing a great partnership that is fostering health and wellness in our community.
Thank you. Okay, once again, that's one of the biggest honors and privileges we have as board members, is being able to recognize all the amazing work that's happening from students and staff and community partners across our schools. So thank you for celebrating with us. So we're going to move on to public comment.
This is an opportunity for the community to share their thoughts with the board. The board will listen to public comment on any topic for up to 1 hour. If more time is required, we can have a second public comment at the end of the meeting. There's a 3-minute time limit per individual speaker, and if there are 4 more people, there are 10 minutes for that group, and the massive clock will help keep you on track. Each speaker has been given a number. The board invites you to come up in the order that you drew your number. When the person before you completes their comments, you can step on up to the podium, and please remember to introduce yourself so we know who we're listening to. So with that, whoever got lucky number 1, feel free to come on up, and welcome.
My name is Elizabeth Kantner. I'm from Arvada, and my topic is appreciation of Director Stephanie Schooley on your last board meeting. So when I realized it was November, I wanted to definitely come by and say a personal thank you as a parent, as your constituent, as a teacher in the district. When you were elected, and this has been alluded to in other speeches, in the fall of 2019, I am sure you knew this job would be work, but what a lot of work, right? I know you had some ideas about plans for the future, maybe starting small with less waste at board meetings and handing out water bottles and encouraging people to think about their waste. And then quickly things evolved or devolved, as it was, into the early spring of 2020. When you and our whole board were asked to meet a crisis head on, think on your feet, and really sift through ever-changing data and emotions to do what was best and right for our students and our community. There was no precedent for this work, and you did it. And thank you for that. Your leadership, grace, perseverance, and transparency through a pandemic and a restructuring of our school district I am very grateful for it. Thank you for making the difficult decisions, for weighing the data and staying the course. I believe your work will make Jeffco strong for our children's future. As a parent, I want to thank you for leading by example. It is important to think of the impacts our actions and words have on all of our children. And finally, I hope now you can look back on this time with satisfaction of a job well done. That you have more time for your family and music. And if I'm ever in another 30-minute line at Chipotle, I hope that you will be standing in front of me or at least behind me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Andrew Gittner. I'm a teacher at Golden. I live in Denver, but I want to express my gratitude to the outgoing board members. I wanted to thank, we've been through some tumultuous times, and thank you for sitting in the very long meetings about all of it. So Stephanie Schooley, thank you very much for your service. When I started in Jeffco, I worked at a charter school that promised to fire me if I couldn't pass a test. I passed it, it was fine. I worked most days from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. I had 6 different preps every week. Sometimes I had to teach classes like AP Lit and English 12 in the same room at the same time, weirdly ping-ponging back and forth. And I had supervisors absolutely just lie and misrepresent my evaluation to make it harder to leave. And because of your tireless advocacy on behalf of Jeffco students, staff, and faculty, I get to still be here. And instead of just being really mediocre at a lot of things, I get to actually be a good teacher for my students. And that means the world to me because I wouldn't still be here. I'm no longer stretched so thin, and I get to have a sustainable profession in part because of your advocacy. I also this is a small thing, and I don't think a lot of people. It was a really small thing, but you you signed off on a CDE workforce grant that helped to support the Pathways to Teaching program at Alameda. And every year I get a text from the teacher who runs that program telling me about the wonderful things her students are doing in college. And that wouldn't have been possible without that show of support, so thank you. I also wanted to thank Director Miller. I learned so much because you were on the board, and I'm grateful for your service. Best of luck in your future endeavors. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, Board of Education, for your service.
Thank you. Welcome. If y'all don't mind introducing yourselves, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Good evening to the board, the cabinet, Jeffco families, and other Jeffco employees. It's good to see all of you. My name is Kara Jacob. I live in Wheat Ridge, and my topic is the building improvement of Wheat Ridge High School. I'm also on the first team downstairs, the Family Response Service team. That's just a little fun fact on the side. But tonight, I represent Wheat Ridge High School. Our family has been at Wheat Ridge High School since 2013. I am the PTSA president. My husband and I have two Wheat Ridge High School graduates, one 2017 and one 2022. And I currently still have two kids there who are a senior and a sophomore. When our oldest son was in 8th grade and asked where he should go to high school, I said, well, you should go to the high school where you can walk out our back door, up the stairs by the track, and up another stairs, and that's where you should go. We have 4 kids, and I really needed someone to be able to walk to school. We didn't even look around at other high schools. It was just too practical not to attend the neighborhood high school. It also helped that they were the farmers, and I grew up on a farm in Iowa. Once we started, I knew we would never leave, and we haven't. As you personally know or have heard, the farm is a special place. I quickly learned that 2 amazing things about Wheat Ridge High School. They are a caring culture, and they are a close community that focuses on character. The teachers, the staff care about our 4 children. The students are seen and known, not just my children, but all children. If time allowed, I would give many examples of the personal touch a staff member or a teacher had on my children's lives. They showed care in times of stress or care in times of joy, celebration, and victory. My children's hearts have been nurtured, loved, and are truly enriched by the staff at Wheat Ridge High School. I also quickly learned a couple not so amazing things. That the farmers were often the underdogs at most sporting events and in other areas, but that's okay. We fill the stands anyway, and we fight until the bitter end. And even though seen as the underdogs, many sports like soccer and swimming have found much success, and both sports have been league champs for the past 2 years in a row. And much success is found in other areas like the music department and STEM. Lastly, I quickly learned that Wheat Ridge High School is often overlooked when it comes to building improvements. Alumni will visit our school. They will attend a musical or a sporting event or a capstone and will often comment, oh, these are the same auditorium seats. This is the same carpet. These are the same window blinds. These are the same toilets that they had when I went to school. They say it with a little nostalgia in the voice, but mostly they say it with concern in their voice. I have been told more than once that Wheat Ridge High School continues to be overlooked because Wheat Ridge starts with a W, and it is at the end of the alphabet. It is time to go from Z to A with school improvements. A core value of Wheat Ridge High School, and I believe with my whole heart, it is not the building that matters, but it is the precious people inside that building that matters. And the amazing staff, students, and families are truly what matters and what we value. However, this heartfelt core value has lasted so long and lasted through enough decades and generations that it has developed into a very layered problem. We want our kids to be strong, resilient, and not care about monetary things. Well, it is also okay for our kids to feel valued and not overlooked decade after decade. You don't have to visit Wheat Ridge High School for long to feel the love, belonging, hard work, and resilience. But you don't have to visit long to see the building needs that are glaring. Thank you so much for the money that you have already given. We are so very grateful. New turf field, the soccer boys love, the new gym, the winter sports are so excited, and other improvements that we've already done. But we can't stop now. And if we don't stop now, we need money. Wheat Ridge community and I ask that you continue to consider the larger needs of our community. Our building will continue to need your support to update our building. We are grateful for your support, so grateful, but we also know that we will need that same support for years to come. Just foundational and basic improvements. Please consider increasing the funding requested that is aligned to our priority list. I would like to close with our mission statement: to inspire all students to think critically and creatively, to become fearless, self-directed learners, as well as respected members of the global community. So I would ask all of us to think critically about the significant concern if we don't continue with these basic improvements at Wheat Ridge High School. The entire caring and close community of Wheat Ridge will benefit from and be inspired by the crucial continued improvements at Wheat Ridge High School. Continued improvements on the farm. Let's do this. Once a farmer, always a farmer.
Hello, everybody. My name is Hugo Reynoso Falco, and I'm a sophomore at Wheat Ridge High School, and I live in Arvada, Colorado. I'm here to talk about the building improvements at Wheat Ridge High School. Jeffco Board of Education and Superintendent Dorland. I'm here to talk about Wheat Ridge High School, a place that's meant a lot to my family for a long time, and not just my family, but the city of Wheat Ridge. My grandparents went to Wheat Ridge High School, and it's been over 100 years of history for the school. I want to make sure that my generation leaves a positive legacy here. In the past 50 years, Wheat Ridge has been overlooked by the Board of Education, other schools getting more funding such as Ralston Valley, Lakewood, and Arvada West. The students at Wheat Ridge deserve better. They should have access to modern facilities, up-to-date technology, and a wide range of educational resources that allow them to thrive and reach their full potential. Yet, the chronic lack of funding has limited these possibilities, and it's our students who suffer the consequences. It's not just about the present, it's about the future. By overlooking Wheat Ridge's funding, we're undermining the generations of students to come. The students who will walk through these halls in years ahead deserve an environment that supports and inspires them. The impact of funding goes beyond the school walls. It affects the morale of our teachers, the aspirations of our students, and the pride of our community. It sends a message that the education and well-being of our students at Wheat Ridge are not as valued as other schools. Some of the basic needs are such as uniform paint, carpet and tile, and bathroom upgrades have not occurred throughout the school since it was built in 1958. Cosmetic issues aside, there are numerous safety concerns that need to be addressed. Emergency alert lighting in all major areas, securing walkways and outdoor stairs, exterior lighting, and parking lot paving, to name just a few that other schools have. Safety should be the #1 priority at the Board of Education. Also, Wheat Ridge High School is the oldest high school in Jefferson County, yet many younger schools continue to receive funding for facility updates. Now, I understand that enrollment is a big factor that comes for funding for schools, but enrollment in our schools, particularly for a place like Wheat Ridge, is a challenge we need to address because the number of students attending our school matters, and it affects what we can do and what we can offer there. But let's think about this differently. Is enrollment just about numbers? What if instead of worrying about getting more students in, we make Wheat Ridge such an amazing place that students are excited to come? Imagine if our school wasn't just a building, but a gateway to fantastic opportunities. What if we had modern facilities and chances that students couldn't resist? I'm talking about the cool stuff: robotics, artificial intelligence, and archaeology. We need to make sure our school is cutting edge, like others. In my own personal experience, when I was in 8th grade, I was looking at where I wanted to go for school. I had the opportunity to go to Ralston Valley, Pomona, and Wheat Ridge. It tested my loyalty to Wheat Ridge, the amazing opportunities I could have at these schools, such as DECA Club and hockey, that Wheat Ridge did not have. Jeffco Board, it is crucial that you allocate more funds for Wheat Ridge. The enrollment issue can be addressed by not just focusing on the numbers, but by creating an environment that attracts and keeps students there. By investing in modern opportunities and facilities, the school can become a hub of innovation, offering cutting-edge programs and hands-on experiences that make learning exciting. This isn't just about money for a building. It's about our investment in our futures. Funding Wheat Ridge isn't just a financial decision. It's about investing in the potential of our students and creating a thriving educational environment. It's time for the board to recognize these problems and recognize the significance of this impact of this investment and act in our favor of securing the more promising funds for Wheat Ridge. Thank you so much.
Hi, Heather Christensen, and Hugo was amazing, so I'm going to go very, very quickly. I'm a parent of a sophomore and a 7th grader at Everett, and I want to say that we ask that a plan be put in place in partnership with our school leadership to ensure that the Wheat Ridge High School and the entire Wheat Ridge articulation area, because our high school is the centerpiece of the community. That's what I've realized now as a parent in high school. It's where we all can come together and make this area thrive. We ask that we receive sustainable and equitable funding to continue the rich history of the farm. Thank you, and go farmers!
Hey, Hugo, I think that you should run for president of the United States of America. Great. Please give us hope for the future. Yeah.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. I think we're on number 4. Welcome.
My name is Leslie Reynolds. I live in Arvada, and I'm here to honor Susan Miller. Good evening, Jeffco board members. I speak to you tonight as a 1976 graduate of Wheat Ridge High School, a mother of 5 graduates from Jeffco Public Schools, a grandmother of 5 current Jeffco students, 2 incoming kindergartners next year, and 3 future Jeffco students. I speak as an educator holding a Colorado teaching certificate and a volunteer of countless hours in multiple Jeffco schools, meeting with numerous teachers, counselors, and principals on behalf of students in our district. For years, I have loved, supported, and been loyal to public education and Jeffco in particular. Tonight, I focus on inexpressible appreciation for a member of the Jeffco School Board who is serving in her last public meeting tonight. Reasonable, measured, accessible, devoted, respectful, objective, brilliant, and focused on student achievement and fiscal responsibility, thousands of families have looked to Susan Miller to represent the best interests of all students of Jefferson County, and Susan Miller has delivered. I publicly offer my deepest gratitude to Susan, who has tirelessly worked to put Jeffco in safer financial status, to lift all students to higher achievement, and to educate the public through accurate data. I deeply value the grace with which Susan faced challenging behavior from other board members in public meetings during her term of service. I'm thankful for her perseverance in presenting facts that matter and in seeking accountability for disappearing funds, overages, and budget concerns, and for her personal attention to individual parents and community members. I stand in awe. She never wavered, and against a tidal wave of opposition on the board, stood firm and solid in her position on behalf of our community and our children's education. Susan Miller is an individual of great intelligence, integrity, patience, refinement, and wisdom. In her public service, she has left a legacy of sacrifice and honor. The whole of Jefferson County has only been made better as a result of Susan Miller's work. Susan, we will miss you more than you know. May life bring you all the best as you move forward into new challenges. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Armstrong from Arvada, and I'm here to speak about Ms. Miller's service. Everybody's a doctor always. Ms. Miller's service. I'm here tonight to celebrate Board Director Susan Miller's term, and I'm not often at a loss for words, but I find myself short of the right ones to express my gratitude for her example. So I'm going to start with policy, naturally. When Ms. Miller began her term, there was a policy since rescinded that stated, it is important that the candidate be seriously and honestly interested in serving the whole school district for the best interest of all children. Board members shall be nonpartisan in dealing with school matters. The board does not wish to subordinate the education of children and youth to any partisan principle, group interest, or personal ambition. I can't think of anyone who has more faithfully embodied those ideals. I cast my vote 4 years ago for Ms. Miller, impressed by her rational and thoughtful approach to governance, and didn't think much of it until the pandemic. And that's when I first clearly saw that not only was her focus always on the welfare of children, all children, she was dogged and fearless in her advocacy for them. But students, or little people, as she often calls them, were her focus all along and long before I noticed. She fought hard to keep dialogue open and keep children from being used as leverage by insisting that their needs and well-being always be primary and that solutions be evidence-based and rigorous. She has been a steadfast and bright beacon for parents and families in this district, and I can't let her leave office without knowing how very grateful we are, how grateful I am for her work and her example. I know that this can be a thankless, difficult, time-consuming volunteer job, and Ms. Miller always shows up and is always prepared to ask hard questions and to speak cordially but plainly, and she's inspired me to dig deeper, pay attention, and be informed enough to ask my own questions. I was discussing some concerns with her once, and in her inimitable style, she said, "I hear you, but where's the hope?" And I want her to know that she has been such a source of hope for me and my family and families in this district. The truth is that she stood watch for our children, my children, before I knew a watch needed standing. And though I hope she stays engaged, and I suspect she will, I want her to know that she has informed and motivated thousands of parents, including me, and that we'll continue the watch from here. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Welcome. If you wouldn't mind just introducing the members of your group, that'd be awesome. Thanks.
My name is Lindsay Datko from Arvada. This is Marie Bagley from Arvada, and Kendra Curry and Tom Coyne. I'm here tonight to make my best but inadequate effort to honor the work of Director Susan Miller, who has nobly embodied the definition of a public servant for the past 4 years in Jefferson County. Ms. Miller once told me that in every decision-making circumstance, a symbolic small chair should be placed in the middle of the room. This way, the children of Jefferson County would never be forgotten as decisions were made. Her focus on children won her the election. Her signature catchphrase has always been, "How are the children?" And she has lived up to her commitment to prioritize and serve the needs of Jeffco children with every breath and action she has taken. On November 6th, 2019, the day after she was elected, Chalkbeat Colorado wrote, "Jeffco School Board gets a critical new voice as Susan Miller takes seat. A previously unanimous union-backed Jeffco School Board will get a new dissenting voice." And since that day, Ms. Miller did indeed become a very important, standalone, yet essential voice for the Jeffco community. She would go on to address concerns surrounding the deeper learning strategy from the previous superintendent. She ensured the community understood the reality of Jeffco's achievement results, which have been declining for all student groups for almost 25 years. And she did her best to improve them by pushing for new curriculum and convincing the district to try MAP Growth and Khan Academy's MAP Accelerator. Academic achievement was her mission. She cared deeply about our children's academic accomplishment, growth, their dreams, and their futures. Having been the president of JAGC, she advocated for gifted students and their unique needs. She showed consistent concern for our minority and Title I students and worked hard to elevate their academic needs. She argued against insufficient pay for the very important educational support staff. As a municipal financial advisor and former Standard & Poor's credit rating officer, she encouraged the decision to invest in a modern financial management system for a $1.4 billion district. She provided transparency of the many capital program challenges, whose cost has ballooned to $856 million due to cost overruns and projects not disclosed to the voters she represented. She convinced the Superintendent Dorland to commission an independent review of the capital program by Moss Adams, a leading provider of independent school bond program audits. She strenuously dissented against the board's decision to take $17 million meant to recover COVID learning losses at a critical time and gift it to the city of Arvada. She fought to put the Stride Clinic back in the Alameda Junior and Senior High School, where it had successfully operated for more than a decade. She pushed back hard against cutting back capital spending at Wheat Ridge High School. She led the charge for her moral obligation to rebuild Fletcher Miller School for our most disabled students. During COVID, she fought courageously to keep our children in school and then return our children to school. She gave speeches and published professional, research-based risk management approaches to the uncertainties we faced. She objected to prolonged restrictions that were hindering our children's development. She was consistently the only vocal elected hope on the dais for thousands of parents with suffering children. She continues to be a voice for the COVID generation. Before her election, she served on charter school boards so she could understand the issues they faced on a regular basis. She co-led the Jeffco Charter School Consortium, a vital communication hub for charters. And during her time on the board, she has advocated for charter schools, provided important data analysis, and attended charter events all over the district. She is a champion of school choice, which nearly half of Jeffco families engage in. She took the time to solve problems with and for individual parents who felt they had nowhere else to go, and reached out to her with concerns ranging from serious to earth-shattering for families. She listened sympathetically and followed up faithfully. She was a champion for parents. She embraced all who reached out to her, never hesitant to listen to any particular voice and problem solve. She led with her intellect as well as her heart and provided the perfect example of the art of diplomacy. She is proof that a lone minority voice can have a massive impact and make significant change through listening, research, hard work, sincere relationships, and principled determination. So let it be known that Ms. Miller's tireless board governance work has been seen, honored, and deeply appreciated by thousands. She has left a rare legacy of a pure focus on children and their prioritized needs, a legacy of wisdom, accuracy, thoughtfulness, kindness, bridge building, and conviction. She has fulfilled her board governance role and lived up to her commitments with complete integrity. The community who found a voice in Ms. Miller has hope that her powerful legacy and influence will have nowhere to go but to live on in the Board of Education. That the many voices she tirelessly represented will continue to be heard and have a seat at the board table. That the tiny chair will show up in every meeting room, and the question will continually be asked in her honor: how are the children? For thousands of parents and community members you served, Ms. Miller, we thank you and we give you a standing ovation all over this district.
Thank you. Welcome.
Much shorter. Good evening. My name is Michelle Applegate. I live in Applewood, and I have kids at Golden High School, Stober Elementary, and Norma Anderson Preschool. I'm here tonight not only personally, but also on behalf of the Stober Elementary community, teachers, staff, and Principal Ann DeCola to thank and honor Director Miller and Director Schooley. Director Miller, thank you for your time, your service, and for always considering our kids. We wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. Director Schooley, I might cry. I've had the pleasure of knowing Stephanie Schooley for many years, and she preceded me in service at our elementary school as a two-term PTA president, a devoted classroom volunteer, an ardent supporter of our teachers and our staff. She is a core member of our community. Her quiet and careful fingerprints are everywhere. Smiles, hugs, warm words, in addition to a great mind with true problem-solving ability. She dives in with rolled up sleeves and an open heart. To me personally, Stephanie is an incredible human. Her ability to listen and give space for other voices, be thoughtful and intentional about her work are inspiring. We have honest and sometimes hard conversations, and no matter what, she is a cheerleader on my best days and a shoulder on my worst. So when it comes to public service, I am grounded by a speech that President Teddy Roosevelt gave in Paris in 1910. He had just left office. He was doing a tour, and he gave a speech to thousands in the streets of Paris, miles from home. It was originally called Citizenship in a Republic, but it is now better known as the Man in the Arena, and many may know this part I'm about to give. These words are really fitting, and I think they're fitting for tonight. I hope President Roosevelt will allow a slight adaptation for our Madam Board President and our Madam Board Director. It is not the critic who counts. It is not the man who points out how the strong woman stumbles or the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the woman who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who actually strives to do the deeds. Who knows great enthusiasm, great devotions, and who spends herself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if she fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that her place shall never be with the cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. Thank you, Stephanie, for daring greatly. Thank you, Director Miller, for doing the same. You have both impacted our communities in great ways. Stephanie, thank you for being a warrior for me and for public education. Yours are big shoes to fill. I am humbled and thankful to call you a friend, and I can't wait to see what you both do next. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Crystal Heater, and I live in Lakewood. I'm here in recognition of Stephanie Schooley. I am a parent of an Everett and Stober student, and I met Stephanie at Stober as she led the PTA through many challenges and advocating for our students, drawing vast support in the Schooley for School Board campaign. I forgot to wear my shirt, I'm sorry. On the board, she has advocated for all students, all concerns, always maintaining what's best for students, even when decisions are difficult. She has spent her time eagerly serving others, giving freely of her time, her family's time, and of her guidance. Observing and engaging as she was on and led the board was eye-opening, astonishing. The matters which the district and the board must consider was more than I had ever imagined, and I suspect more than most community members could ever imagine. And then there was COVID. You remember that fiasco? She held us all together, and she held herself together for that matter, through such trying and emotional times, through fear and such great strife in our learning environments. The adversity at times seemed like more than anyone could endure. Her strength and resilience was beyond admiration. Stephanie is an innovative thinker, a strong leader, an amazing listener, open-minded and solutions-oriented, with an unmatched ability to bring people together. giving of herself for all of our children and for all of us. And for that, we owe you such thanks. And I can't wait to see what venue you bless next with all that you bring to all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
My name is Erin Kenworthy. I'm a Jeffco parent and an engaged district volunteer, and I live in Lakewood. I'm here tonight to express my gratitude for the service of outgoing board members. So Susan Miller, best wishes to you and your family as you step away from this position. Thank you for doing your very best to support our district staff and students, and may you enjoy whatever follows next on your journey. To Stephanie Schooley, I'm so grateful for your willingness to serve and your investment of your time and energy into this worthy endeavor. I'm grateful for your integrity and your level head, your clarity of thought, compassion, and grounded presence, as well as your willingness to hear a variety of perspectives different than your own. Personally, I'm profoundly thankful for your example as an elected leader, your joy and laughter, and your tireless commitment to public education. May your next steps bring you to new frontiers and increased horse time and family time, and renewal following a full 4-year term, certainly with its joys and its challenges. I hope we all continue to see you in our community and benefit from your wisdom and support as we all move forward together. Thank you so much for your service.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. I'm Katie Winter. I'm from Arvada. I've got boys at Drake Middle School, Arvada West High School, and a little bit at Warren Tech. I'm here to talk about leadership that is seen and unseen, in honor and recognition for 2 of our outgoing board members. You're seen here today because you were elected. What wasn't seen were the hours of hard work that went into earning those positions to serve our communities. You're seen here many times engaging with the community. You're here with public comment, but what's not seen is the hours you spend answering emails, having meetings, and sometimes going on the internet, but not you, Stephanie Schooley. You don't go on the internet at all. It's a great thing. Stephanie Schooley can be found in the messy middle, and I found you there one time during COVID. There was a Zoom conversation you held, and I remember vividly there was a person who was trying to claim the space with an opinion. She had an opinion, and she was proudly stating how she felt, and you made sure to let her know that all opinions were valued. And I really appreciated that you took control of that space and made sure that one person's opinion didn't override the others and left it open for other voices to be heard. That was really super important. And Susan Miller, I remember meeting you here in the boardroom. They used to put the chairs closer. And we were over here, and I sat next to you, and I have no idea what we said, but we agreed on something. And the funny thing about that moment was the camera was on, and somebody saw us talking and said, I got a question, why are you talking to Susan Miller? And I was like, why not? And I really appreciate how you do talk to everybody. And I think that's so valuable and important that you definitely made space. We talked about the 2018 mill and bond, school start times, and I really can't thank you enough for having great conversations with an East Coaster like me. To be my favorite person to disagree with next to my husband is Stephanie Schooley. And the reason why I enjoy our productive struggles together is because I'll sometimes say something and just start talking, and you'll let me know that you agree or that you don't agree. And you help me to think differently. And I think that's helped me to grow, because I know that as an educator yourself and a parent, you're always learning, and you always are pushing me to learn, to think differently, to get context. Context is important. And to unknow things I thought I know, because sometimes I think I know, but I don't know. And I think that's really great of you to really open up those spaces and places where you kindly let us know there's more to know. To be a leader is to be seen, to be ready to get in the messy middle, to have great critical friends, definitely to do the hard work, the really hard work. And being a leader means we have to be united. And I think that's the one thing that's important for all of Jefferson County, is for us to consider doing better and being united and working. And I want to thank both of you for being models of how we can possibly do things differently and better in Jefferson County for the future. And I'm proud of our school board, and I know people are jealous of our school board across the state because we have a phenomenal organization led by dynamic leaders who don't always agree, but do it with civility and pride. And we are a model, believe it or not. I know we have our challenges, but we do it here in Jeffco, and I think all of us in the future are going to be better off because of the board directors we have at our table today. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we got to everyone. Is there anyone that we missed on our list? All right, thank you all so much for spending time, for sharing your perspectives with us. We really appreciate it. We know your time is valuable. So we're gonna move on to our first part of our agenda. Our presentation this evening, where we begin, is the request of the board. We're going to receive a brief presentation on the current state of gifted and talented education in Jeffco. The presentation is designed to highlight areas that are on track and those that have been identified for focused acceleration. The vision of our gifted and talented program to actualize learners' potential is in alignment with our board ends guiding philosophy. Every student will be met where they are to reach their fullest potential in a way that honors, utilizes, and addresses their individual differences. Before I hand this over to Mr. Polero and Mr. Golden, Superintendent Dorland, is there anything you'd like to add?
Thank you, President Schooley, thank you for asking our staff for this update. And I know, Ms. Miller, you also advocated for the board and our public to have an update about how we are serving our students who are identified as gifted in one or more areas. We are prepared to share with the board both successes and areas for focused acceleration related to our GT services. Thank you to Mr. Polero and Mr. Golden who have prepared for tonight's board discussion. And now I hand it over to Mr. Polero.
All right, good evening, President Schooley, Superintendent Dorland, distinguished members of our board. For our audience listening, I'm Matt Polero and I'm your Chief Student Success Officer. And presenting on Gifted and Talented this evening will be
Alan Golden. Thank you for the invitation to speak with you today. I'm grateful for the opportunity to share some updates about the work that we're doing in our GT department. I would like to start by taking the opportunity to ground us in the work that we do in our department by reading our vision, which is to actualize potential for gifted and high ability learners through a focus on access, equity, inclusion, and diversity. We believe all students deserve an education that will provide meaningful growth academically, socially, and emotionally. We really try to keep everything around that vision. So to talk a little bit about the work we do, this slide contains some of the basics of our department. We try to focus all of our work on three main pillars: identification, programming, and professional learning. We work hard to identify students as gifted and talented. Then we work with teachers and schools on programming to try to meet those needs of our advanced learners. And then our department also provides professional learning for multiple audiences. So we have a few other things up on the slide I'd like to cover really quickly. The WHO, gifted and talented, is legislated by the state to be K-12, except for our early access students who start a little earlier than that. Our services start whenever a student is identified. That's usually in second grade, but we do have GT Center classes that start in first grade. Our universal screening does occur in second grade. And I did want to point out really quickly as well that the GT centers that we have around the district do require a separate student application for qualification, and they are considered choice programming through Enroll Jeffco. So we don't have transportation to those centers. Okay, so a few numbers. We have over 8,300 students identified as GT in Jeffco, which is almost 11% of the district. Just for the sake of comparison, this is a little bit less than the 13.5% of the district with an IEP. My team consists of me, the director. We have a part-time coordinator and 2 support staff. We have 17 GT centers, and they serve a little less than 20% of our GT students. We also have 16 GT resource teachers that each serve about 9 schools, and we have 10 social and emotional learning counselors, SELCs. They serve our GT centers. Okay, so our first pillar is identification. That's the first bucket of work that we do. I'd like to give a quick overview about our ID process. Excuse me, hold on just a second. We do work hard to identify students, and we use the CDE guidelines for that identification. Identified students include twice exceptional students, so that includes students with both an ALP and either an IEP or a 504. And we try hard to identify students from all socioeconomic and all cultural populations in Jeffco. GT students are identified in several different areas, including general intellectual ability, specific academic aptitude, that's most commonly identified in math and reading. We also have identifications in creativity, leadership, and then talent areas such as visual arts and music. So pillar 2, once we have students identified, we need to program for them. Like I said before, we have 17 GT centers, which serve grades 1st through 12th. We have 9 elementaries, 6 middle schools, and 2 high schools. Our GT centers do serve less than 20% of our students on ALPs. They have similar ability groupings in classes, which allows for compaction of curriculum, and that also allows for increased opportunities for enrichment and extension. And we have at every center at least a 0.5 SELC to provide specialized SEL support and a resource teacher 1 day a week. We also want to point out that every one of our centers is unique in both structure and dynamics. So they vary from center to center. They vary from level to level as well. So elementary looks very different than middle school, for example. So here are our GT center schools on this slide. You can see that we also have our Sparks Summer Enrichment Academy on there as well. And then this graphic shows some of the different paths that students can take to matriculate through the GT centers in Jeffco from elementary up through high school. Okay, so our second part of programming is going to be for the over 80% of GT students that are in neighborhood schools that are not in our center programs. There are multiple different models utilized to meet the needs of advanced learners in neighborhood schools. Some schools use cluster groupings. Some schools have pull-out enrichment programs. Secondary schools do offer advanced classes to help meet the needs of high-performing students. They also provide numerous opportunities for growth in talent areas. We support these schools through building leaders. Building leaders coordinate all of our GT services, so that's ID, programming, and ALP completion for their school. And then the last pillar that we work on is professional learning. So our department works to deliver professional learning for school and district staff. That's for both GT center teachers and for neighborhood schools on request. We also do district-wide professional learning, including sessions about how to meet the mental health needs of GT students for all interested staff. We provide professional learning for families as well. So that includes topics such as GT 101 to talk about what our department is and how to understand GT. We also have social and emotional learning lessons there as well. So how to support students with executive functioning, career planning, other topics such as that. And we're very proud to partner with the JAGC, which is Jefferson Association for Gifted Children. That's our partner, which we also provide support for their meetings and at some of their sessions as well. Okay, so this slide shows some demographic comparisons. If you look at the far column on the left there, obviously is all of our different categories we're looking at today. The district column is the percentage of all of those populations. And then if you move to the right, you're looking at the GT numbers, so the GT percentage of all of those same groups. And then the far right would be the GT center populations. The very bottom number, the 2E, that just shows that the percentage of twice exceptional students in our district. So 12% of our students on an ALP are twice exceptional. If you look at the number in GT centers, that's a little bit higher at 16.7%. So I wanted to start with that. That number doesn't quite match the format of the rest of the data. So a couple of quick notes. We weren't able to get the percentage of students in our GT centers that qualify as free or reduced lunch before we put this presentation together, so I apologize for that. I am working on that data and we will have that available at some point soon. I also put in a request to get how this data compares to other districts and also state data. I don't have that back yet either, but I should have that relatively soon as well. I can tell you from attending a lot of meetings and a lot of conferences, under-identification is a major issue for gifted education. It has been for several years, and it continues to be a major point of focus for us as well. As you can see by looking at these numbers, we definitely have some concerns there. Our department has made several shifts recently to address the concerns of under-identification, and I'll share some of those with you a little bit later in this presentation. This slide provides a quick check-in that shows how our GT students are doing using our Jeffco Thrives checkpoints. We are slightly higher than the state average for GT students in third grade ELA and then fifth grade and eighth grade math. If you looked at the percentage of students who met or exceeded on the 2022-23 CMAS. One quick note. Remember that students are identified in different areas, so they're not always globally gifted, they're not always good at everything, so you can't expect a GT student to necessarily be great at every academic area. The second two columns then compare our median growth percentile for GT students with the state data, and remember that a score above 50 is considered positive for this particular metric. And then if we look at graduation rates, our GT students are graduating at a slightly higher rate, so 93 to 85 than our students overall. Okay, to share some areas that I feel like we're doing fairly well, that we're on track, I would like to highlight a few things here. Our identification processes and procedures, some of those are used throughout the state as a model. We're asked to present at various conferences and work with other metro area districts on some of these portions as well. We are very proud that we have partnered with numerous departments around the district. So we've partnered with the ESL team and the Title I team to work on increasing identification of underrepresented populations. That's been a big focus since I started and continues to be an ongoing focus. This includes doing some additional NNAT, which is the National Area Nonverbal Ability Test, for multiple Title I schools that were impacted by ROFs in spring of 2023. Working with those partnerships, we're very, very proud of that. Extraordinary student experiences. Our GT centers were highlighted in the Jeffco Gifted Education Monitoring Review, which was wrapped up last spring, and they were highlighted as a model of an excellent Tier 3 resource for qualifying GT students. And then our people. We have a passionate, knowledgeable team of GT resource teachers and SELCs that represent Jeffco and gifted education well at the state and regional level. And then, like I said earlier, other districts and CDE personnel often use our models as examples. We know we have some work to do though. So our areas for focused acceleration are non-center services, keeping in mind that programming for students with ALPs who are not in GT centers, that's more than 80% of our students in the district with ALPs, and making sure that we have more consistent, high quality programming across center and non-center based programs. We know we need to work on accessibility, so more effectively communicating about the resources and opportunities that we have in our GT department and are available to Jeffco families and teachers. Continuing to support our twice exceptional populations and meeting those growing needs in our GT centers, and also meeting the mental health needs of all GT students. Our people, finding qualified GT center teachers is a challenge. And then our learners, consistently meeting the demand at our center programs, where we have multiple grades with large wait lists at several schools. Okay, leaning in to listen and learn. So by partnering across departments, we're continuing to work to increase those identification rates of underrepresented populations, including our multilingual learners. A 2024 program evaluation will include an in-depth analysis of our GT centers and our non-center GT services in our schools. And the evaluation will do several things, but will also inform us how to tackle the ongoing challenge of creating meaningful and relevant advanced learning plans at the secondary level. With support from our professional learning team, we're also working to provide additional resources and supports to schools on how to best support gifted educators so they can support their students as well. So with that, I would like to say thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you so much for putting this together. We appreciate it. Board members, is there anyone that would like to start us off with questions or comments? Director Parker.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I have a few questions. What is the percent of students who are identified or referred from the school, from the staff? I understand there's two steps to it. The child is identified and then the parents can apply or choose to go to the centers, I guess. But what percentage of kids are identified and the parents don't follow through in any way, shape, or form?
I don't have that data in front of me. Again, remember that only less than 20% of our students around the district end up in GT centers. So that number is fairly high, but I don't have the percentage of parents who don't apply for that or do anything.
Thank you. And I'm just trying to understand for sure, because I talked to some parents who were, their child had been referred, or I'm not sure if it's identified, and they were thinking about what to do next. But if a child is just identified, does that stay with the child no matter what the parents do? If the child just goes to their neighborhood school, they are known to be identified as GT?
That is correct. So the student is placed on an ALP, and then we try to program for them as best as possible at that neighborhood school. Like I said, that looks very different from school to school.
Right.
But that does follow them through the 12th grade, yes.
And then some of the kids who don't quite make it all the way, I think I read something about they are kind of flagged or on a list, or there's possibility, talent pool. Can you give me a little more information on what that is?
Yeah, most definitely. So we have two other groups, and I didn't talk about those in this presentation, that our team works very closely with. We have talent pool students, and then we have ALP watch students. So the population you're describing is ALP watch, which means they have one or more pieces of data to qualify as ID, or to identify them as GT. They don't have all of the necessary pieces though. So we put them on an ALP watch. That's a flag that shows up in campus, and our team continues to gather data to try to identify those students. The other group that I mentioned was talent pool students. Talent pool students may or may not have any data to identify them, but they are identified as high potential, high performing students by each school that participates. And we program for those students much like we would a student with an ALP, again with the intent to identify them as GT.
And then, as you mentioned, some kids can be identified as academically gifted or in the arts or in the kinesthetic field. So if a child is identified in the arts, what happens to their core classes? Do they go with the other GT students who have been identified academically, or what?
Great question. So yeah, the answer to that is usually not. So a student that would be identified in arts, the programming that they would have would be focusing on that art identification. It wouldn't be focused on academic content necessarily, because they're probably going to be, in the same place as their grade level peers for that content. I did want to mention as well, since you asked about those groups, the number of students on an ALP watch is currently 3,000, about 3,200. So it's a fairly large number. And then we have about 600 students in talent pool.
And if the parents do enroll their child in one of the center programs, and I'm saying these things because we have a large percentage of GT kids that are represented in, say, CASB student groups and so forth, and I listen to their complaints and their concerns.
Sure.
Once you're in the program or identified, can you get kicked out? I mean, do you have to have a certain GPA if you were identified in math, or?
You don't have to have a certain GPA, no. So there is a contract for GT Center students. It's more of a guideline for behavior. It's not really a contract, so they don't get removed per se. But there are some guidelines that are expectations is probably a better way to put that.
Yeah, because I think I heard from some who are gifted in sports, and if they didn't fulfill their contract, then they could possibly be, not able to participate in the next event or something. I just heard this from a parent of someone who was their child was academically gifted and did not. Well, I guess I got it reversed. Anyway, the academically gifted ones, there was no penalty. You didn't have to sit out a game or sit out an activity if you didn't fulfill your contract. But this person's child, she felt, was being punished where others weren't.
Sure, I can't speak to that. I will say that the philosophy on gifted education is once a student is identified as gifted, that's never taken away from them. So that would include in talent areas as well.
Okay. And also, since the GT kids that I know of are very unique, they have different learning styles. Well, I know every child has different learning styles, but the talented, gifted and talented ones I've noticed have a different perspective sometimes on the world. But so I'm wondering, what kind of training do you give to teachers for GT students, especially if you're going to put them all in the same classroom?
Yeah, great question. We offer a lot of professional learning for our teachers. So that would include our center teachers who work with GT kids on a daily basis. It's also available to any other teacher in the district. We have online classes they can take for a very low cost. And then we provide professional learning for other neighborhood schools whenever it's requested. So we do a lot of professional learning. I just did an observation this morning at a high school working with new teachers on how to best serve the needs of GT students. So that's a big part of what our department does. Yeah, so part of that training would involve strategies on how to work with students on executive functioning. And a great example is the training that I observed this morning, which focused just on that. You might have a student who's very, very bright, understands what you're doing, but doesn't turn any homework in, right? Or any work in. So strategies on how to help those students with those executive functioning strategies, that's a big part of what we do at that level.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Reed. Thank you so much for this information. I have really deep concerns about the racial disparity here, like really deep concerns. That we have 69% of our students who are white and 82% of them are identified as GT. 27.5% of our population is Latino and 9.3% are identified. That doesn't make any sense to me. I understand that you are making some changes in identifying them, and I'm assuming that the outreach to families is also a piece of that. So if you could maybe give me a little more specific idea of how we're resolving this, because I have real concerns about what tools we're using if this is the result.
Completely understand. And as I mentioned earlier, that's one of my largest concerns and has been since I took this role. I think there's a couple things to keep in mind. It is definitely not a Jeffco specific issue. It's definitely something that districts around the state are working with, and that's a piece of the metro work that I do with the metro directors. A lot of it is focused on how can we more equitably identify students. One of the things that we are excited about is, just looking at our processes and making sure, do we have barriers that are in the way that we can get rid of? Are we using the correct assessments at the right time? Things like that we're really focusing on trying to make sure that we tackle this program head on. Some of my team, I have dedicated a lot of their work to just this issue because I think it's a very crucial issue for our district.
I will just add that I think it's a very important area of focused acceleration for us. And I don't know, Mr. Polero, do you have anything you'd want to add maybe in terms of the partnership that we've done with Ms. Pena's team in some schools that we could talk, just give a little bit more detail about, which is promising. There are some promising results from some work that we've started.
Yeah, and as much as I'd like to take some credit for that, this was Alan's outreach to Tara, so I'll let him expand a little bit on what that partnership looked like and what some of the outcomes were as a result of that, and some shifts that we'll potentially be making as a result of this change that they worked on.
Yeah, so Tara was a great partner, Tara and her team, and basically we met and we talked about how we could do some more testing to really look at the schools that are going to be impacted by ROFs, particularly the Title I schools. So we were able to put together a very aggressive, very quick testing. We did it all in about 2 weeks at the end of last year. We tested about, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was over 400 students very quickly. We were able to, in that group, find a number of them that would qualify for either Talent Pool, ALP Watch, or even an ALP. So that kind of approach of targeted assessments, again, we used the NNAT assessment, which is a different assessment than what we use for the second grade universal screener. And we had some really good luck with that. So we're continuing that this year as well in some other settings. We've already done some NNAT in numerous schools around the district, and we'll continue that.
The NNAT is the nonverbal one?
It is, yes. Which is considered more culturally responsive typically.
Okay. Did you have any other questions, Director Reed? I didn't want to cut you off. Okay. Other questions, comments? I'm just assuming you all have them. All right, Director Miller, and then we'll go to Dr. Berta.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you for your presentation and also the work that you're doing. I know that it has been a long struggle trying to really find exactly what Director Reed is talking about, the right assessments so that we're able to address all children's learning needs across the spectrum of learning. And I do agree that we are not in that same space where we need to be for our underserved populations. So thank you for doing that work and reaching out and working with Tara. I do have a question about the watch students of 3,200 children. That's quite a few kiddos, and I assume that they are across all grades or primarily elementary?
Yeah, that's across all grades. Okay. I don't have the exact grade breakdown. Probably the majority of those would be, 3rd through 9th.
Okay. And so how are your resource teachers monitoring them? Because they would have to be also monitoring ALPs at your local schools as well as the center schools. So how is that monitoring different than how you would be tracking the implementation of an ALP?
Yeah, great question. So one of the things our department does every month is a department-wide data dig. So they get into teams, they look at all of that data. So, depending on what schools they are working with, they have that list in front of them. And so with those ALP Watch kids, they're looking anytime we have new data, whether that's map data, whatever that data is, they're looking at those scores to try to find more qualifying pieces of evidence.
And then do they switch over to a formal ALP if they?
They do. As soon as they qualify, we put them on a formal ALP. Yep.
Okay.
Yes. So there's 4 different flags that show up in IC as part of our department. Okay. The talent pool is one of them, the ALP Watch, ALP. And then we also have early access for students who started school early as part of that process.
Okay.
And I just wanted to point out why that flag is important, because it's a joint effort to monitor these students. So if a teacher sees that flag in IC, then they realize that student is on watch and can partner closely with our GT resource teachers or the district and supporting whatever student needs may emerge as a result.
Okay, thank you. And then a couple more questions, if you don't mind. Looking back on page, where is it page 12, I think, with the detail related to performance and how, yes, the Jeffco match or exceeds state median growth percentile versus the Jeffco median growth percentile. And so I understand the median growth of 50, but ideally we'd like all kiddos well above the 50 to ensure that we're getting more than just that bare minimum comparative. So when we are looking at fifth grade math, for example, and we're lagging behind the state, and we look at eighth grade math and we're lagging behind the state, what are some of the interventions or concerns? It's been a trend for us for a while. This isn't new, and we've just kind of been right at that median. And I'm just wondering how we can maybe start to move more towards the state median growth percentile or higher.
Yeah, great question. I think this is a big piece of the work that we do with the curriculum and instruction team to help partner to provide some more additional resources when appropriate for continuing to push those students that are above that level. Okay. But it's an ongoing challenge for sure.
Right. I just think that's something that we should be paying attention to if we're dragging behind the state. It would be a concern, especially when we're looking at the suburb of Denver and we're in a pretty strong area. And so that has always been a flag for me.
Agreed.
And then I am interested in the center programming that we have at elementary schools, middle, and then at the 2 high schools, and the consistency of programming and how you all are evaluating that. I know that Superintendent Dorland is going from articulation area to articulation area and doing the work with the principals in those areas about what's good quality of learning or of how do you put it? Or learning, the learning walks and what they're seeing in those classrooms. And to me, that's the same thing that we should be doing with our centers, both SPED as well as gifted and talented. And that has not been our practice in the past. And so I'm curious as to where you all are in those learning walks. Is that something else you guys might be doing in relationship to what Superintendent Dorland's already put in place?
Yeah, I can definitely speak to the walks that I've been a part of, and I work very closely with all of the center principals. I haven't been in all of those center classrooms. I think that is a logical next step, but it is definitely an ongoing piece of making sure that we're elevating the instruction in all of those classrooms and trying to make sure that it is where it needs to be.
Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
And I was just going to add that it will become an expectation of us to visit our classrooms to understand what's happening at the student and classroom level. And we'll be creating more of a systemic plan as a part of our program evaluation, which will include multiple walks and interviews of different stakeholders, both in our neighborhood schools, but in particular in our center schools, because we recognize that there are some inconsistencies and we want to leverage the things that are working really well, that are really high quality, and have some common expectations set across the board so students are getting that experience of instructional excellence no matter what center they are in our school district.
So there is in your framework of evaluating the center school from elementary levels, contrasting all the elementary schools and the middle schools and then high, your expectation is that we should start moving to spaces that,
yes,
with the expectation that your students are receiving what they should be receiving at those schools consistently across.
Absolutely.
Awesome. That will be one. That is something that I think we all should be watching. Same with our SPED programs, that we're delivering the same high quality for our SPED as expectations. Yep. Same should be for our GT. And then one real quick follow up to that, which is our ALP children in our neighborhood schools. It's always been a challenge to ensure that they also have access to great learning experiences and growing. And so I'd be interested if your walks at some of the schools where we know that they are, they're not GT centers, they are, what are they called? the 3 or 4 schools that are, I'm sorry? I'm blanking on the name. No, they're, is it Westgate or one of them that they're hubs for ALP kiddos? Am I not thinking? Is it Westgate or there was one at Sheridan Green and now it's Ryan, I believe. It's not a GT Center, but it's a hub.
Ryan is a GT Center.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You might be referring to clusters.
Clusters, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, clusters. There was 3. Yeah. I knew it was a hub or. Yeah, I knew it was a hub, but it was they were gathering. But the cluster schools, when you compare their programming as well and how they cluster students based on need, are you also doing those types of walks as well to be comparing what one cluster is compared to another? Is that part of your program as well, Matt?
It will be.
Okay. Great. And thank you for the helpful vocabulary word.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Berta.
I'm just curious about the neighborhood schools. Well, is that echoing? So in 20% of the kids are at the center programs, and at each of those center programs, there's a 0.5 SEL assigned just for those kids. That's my first question.
That is correct, yes.
And then in the neighborhood schools or the other schools where there's 80%, do they have any SEL resources besides the school's typical resources?
They do have SEL resources in all of the neighborhood schools as well. I can't speak to exactly what that is. I don't know.
No, but I meant, is there anything specifically for the GT kids?
No, but we do provide professional learning for district-wide for CELCs if they're available, or for CELs, if they're interested in taking that. That's part of the mental health. We provide mental health training for GT as
I just
desired.
wondered about that. It seems like if there's so much resource at the centers for SEL, and it seems then that it's lacking for the GT kids, 80% of them, and the others, because we're already kind of SEL scarce, just generally for the gen ed population. And so it just seems like a gap that we don't have more SEL resources specifically for the GT kids. And that, I don't know, it just seems like a lot in the center program and then nothing, specifically for them in the school and the other schools, while there's 80% of them there. So that just struck me as interesting. And then the other part, it said on here that all the neighborhood schools, we call them neighborhood schools, but they're all neighborhood schools, right? So is that correct?
It should be non-GT center schools,
okay,
right? That's a better term.
Okay. And then all schools have a building leader who coordinates GT services, but then there's that little bullet that they're assigned by the principal and don't receive any additional compensation. So what does that look like? It sounds like it could be extremely inequitable. If they're assigned by the principal, is it a certain type of individual in the school that gets that assignment? And are they the ones creating the ALPs for the kids? Like, how are we attending to all that?
They usually are, not in every case. Sometimes it's classroom teachers, but they oversee that, and definitely in support of our team as well. The resource teachers that support the school work with them. That's one thing we're looking at moving forward, to be honest with you. Some of our building leaders have done it for a long time. They're very passionate about it. They spend a lot of time and energy and go through some of our classes. And others are assigned by the principal. It just depends on the school, really.
And I'm just learning about this. I just wonder if the 80% in the non-GT neighborhood schools are getting the resources that they need. And I understand, it's really different in every school, but it just seems like it's almost impossible to give them what they need with it so dispersed.
It's a challenge for sure. Yeah, I understand your concern there.
Well, and then my last question, also just curiosity. To what extent do parents play a role in advocating for their kids during testing, after testing, to become, I can't think of the word, but identified thank you, as GT. I've heard stories of, parents who advocate for their kids in that way? And as a
Sure.
parent, I'm even curious, like what is that? Because I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, great question. So we try really hard to make that process as transparent and clear as possible. So on our website, there is a lot of information, but essentially a parent just has to do a referral. And anytime a parent does a referral, we will pull all of the data that we have available for that student and see if they qualify based on that data and then move forward from there.
Just in relation to your question, I just wonder if that's part of our disparity, because we just know that some parents are more able and often advocate for their kids across different classes and races. And so I just wonder if that could be part of our disparity as well.
It's definitely something that we have looked at as a barrier for sure,
Yeah.
possibly.
I wonder if there's like research on that. I don't know. That's interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just a couple comments and questions, and we will release you. So I agree, especially the difference between students who are GT identified in center programs and then not. It reminds me a lot of when the district was doing work around FRL and at-risk funding. Right? We had a similar kind of upside down Title I funding, in terms of students in Title I schools who identified, and then schools or students in every other school, and how we rethought, how the district kind of rethought what that looked like in terms of resourcing those students. To me, this is another opportunity for us to, I don't know if it's rethinking, but lean into what I do think is a challenge in terms of if you have identified GT kids, but you don't want to move them to another school. I did not want to make that choice. I was thankful, and we had a principal who had an advanced degree in GT education who is leading our school, but that's luck of the draw. That's not about intention. That's about thank you, sweet baby Jesus, for being here, because she knew exactly how to train her staff, provide supports, and get our kids where they needed to be. So that's not the way we should be operating. And I understand that we're uncovering a lot of things. This has been a lot of years of uncovering things in terms of our systems. But this one, to me, seems like a real opportunity to be able to support a group of learners in a way that's much more intentional. Because where they are and how we're providing supports is a little bit cattywampus. It's an official scientific term. Trying to look it up. I also share Director Miller's real strong interest in having continuity across articulation areas, if not just a broad strategy around what does GT education look like in this district. And if I see it in one place, not that we take away the individual school option around serving kids in the way that makes sense for them, but do I see that there's a strategy in continuity around that? And I think that's been challenging to be able to identify, at least from a parent role. So I look forward. I'm excited about the interest around this and the intention around doing some of this work. And then just one other area that I will note, and we don't have sort of more longitudinal information based on this presentation. I get we're starting from where we're starting from, but in terms of growth for our GT students, I get a little bit concerned. They are high performing on achievement. They tend to outperform, whether it's the state or other students in the district. But growth is I don't think where it could be. So I worry about us not accelerating that group of students, because I'm not going to answer what I was going to say. I'm worried that we're not accelerating the growth of those students, regardless of where they're starting from in terms of achievement. And so to me, it won't be up to me. But if I were thinking about this longer term, that's where I would be paying a lot of attention as a board member, because we need to be differentiating and accelerating students regardless of being sure that they're going to perform well on CMAS, basically. Okay. Anything you wanted to add, Superintendent Dorland?
I have some last words, but I would like for Mr. Golden and Mr. Polero to be able to jump in if they would like to respond first.
We wholeheartedly agree. And, one thing that we're extremely proud of that, isn't up here is the data dashboard specific to GT, where we have real-time data in front of us to be looking at longitudinal data, but also historical data, right? And I think that's going to serve us very well in making informed, data-driven decisions to help accelerate the growth that we all desire to see for our students who are gifted and talented, or talent pool students, or students on watch.
So final words. I have seen the data. I'm looking at Dr. Kim to make sure I'm not misspeaking about our performance of students who've been identified as gifted compared to other similar districts. You see some of the statewide comparisons up here, and we're not performing where our like in-state peer districts are performing with our gifted students. And so I so appreciate the questions and the push from the board this evening for this group of students and our services in support of them. I want to frame my next comments around truth and hope, right? So the truth is we have a lot of work to do in this area and in the area of special education. We've talked ad nauseum about mental health supports for students, social emotional learning. It's refreshing that for me, the hope is that we're actually having this conversation instead of the conversation around, do we have consistent reading curriculum in our schools? Right. So 2 years ago, that was the conversation, 2.5 years ago. What about math? Right? Do we have core instruction and high quality materials for teachers and students to use for teaching and learning in classrooms? We're not having that conversation anymore. And I can tell you, as we go into our learning walks, the difference in student exposure to grade level content and standards today versus 2 years ago in the fall of 2021 is night and day. We've made huge progress, which is the hope, right? And because of that progress and that foundation that we've established, I believe we can have the conversation we're having tonight, which is now what about students who are on an IEP, students who have gifted needs. And I just believe strongly that we have really strong leaders in these spaces who are going to be doing incredible work. Mr. Polero is starting a review of the functions within his area of leadership around special education services, mental health services, physical health services, and gifted services. And so that information that we're gathering will also be very helpful for us. I think this presentation is the beginning of us just being able to say, here's where we are and here's where we need to head. And the questions that you're asking are the exact same questions we've been asking ourselves. And so I'm very appreciative to be able to have a public conversation about it. And I'm really looking forward to supporting the team and moving forward with some improvement in this arena.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen, thank you. Appreciate you. Does anyone need to take a break, or are we okay to roll on forward? Okay. All right. Well, then we will move on to what is our final presentation of the evening. We're going to receive an enrollment update from district staff outlining preliminary and unaudited student enrollment counts and the estimated fiscal impacts of this enrollment. As a reminder to our listening public, each year the district conducts a student count in early October on behalf of the Colorado Department of Education called October Count. This presentation shares the preliminary and unaudited enrollment data from the October count while also sharing high-level information about the current enrollment location for students who previously attended one of the elementary schools that closed as part of Phase 1 for regional opportunities. The actual enrollment data is one of several variables that drives refinement to the district's forecasted revenue for 23-24. Additional data will emerge in the coming months that will further refine the district's revenue forecast. And then there's more words. Sorry, I feel like I'm just repeating myself, so I'm going to stop talking. Would you like to say anything before I turn it over to our friends?
I do want to talk a little bit. We have a presentation about this every year for our Board of Education. You all asked very good questions of us last year, and so this presentation, I think, is very thorough and much more detail oriented than what you've seen in the past. Thank you for those questions last year, and we will again see how tonight's conversation goes and continue to refine what we present to you around enrollment. We all know enrollment is incredibly important as it is the driver of our revenue. And so very much looking forward to you receiving this update tonight, sort of as the very beginning of our budgeting process for fiscal year 25 and really looking at where are we and where might we head in terms of the revenue that we can expect. I will also just say that I'm pleased this evening to have the team in front of you led by Ms. Copeland and alongside her, Mr. Salmons, Mr. Felker, and Mr. Hanks. We have made an organizational shift in the district for our planning and analysis team to move from our facilities team into our finance team. It honestly can go either way, and different districts do it differently. I've been a part of districts that do it both ways. It was important to me that our planning and analysis was tightly aligned with our financial planning because it is such a key component of our revenue. That being said, planning and analysis also has a lot to do with facilities. And so Mr. Hanks kind of, has a foot in both teams. But I'm very appreciative of the transition and the opportunity for him to have some direction from Ms. Copeland and Mr. Salmons as they begin to prepare for budgeting and projections. And so I want the board to know and our public to know that we have made intentional efforts organizationally to more tightly couple planning with our finance team. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to our CFO, Ms. Copeland.
Great. Good evening, board members. Superintendent Dorland, thank you for that introduction. To situate us a little bit further, you are going to hear some numbers towards the end of this presentation that do start to estimate some revenue impacts. You'll hear some numbers around our K-12 enrollment and then some numbers around our pre-K enrollment. And in fact, those move in two opposite directions, sort of a positive variance in one and a negative variance in the other that just so happen to somewhat cancel each other out. Good news, there are other aspects of the enrollment we'll be looking at, Mr. Salmons, Mr. Felker, and the teams. All of that will be summarized for you January 10th-ish, whenever that study session is, when we're going to come forward with details about a potential budget revision for the current year. Superintendent Dorland is correct. This is very important for next year's budget planning, but even before we get to next year, we will be making some revisions to the current year budget that all of this analysis feeds into. So your questions tonight, insofar as they relate to revenue, obviously you'll be directing to Mr. Salmons, but we also have cross-functional input from other teams talking more about the ins and outs of which kids are leaving, where are they going, that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit more of a holistic view for you. And you can see up top the agenda items or on the sides, or you can't see it at all. Sorry about that. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Mr. Salmons. Here you go.
Thank you, Ms. Copeland. Okay. So we're going to cover Jeffco student membership, pre-K through 12th grade. District membership, which is the actual number of students in our buildings, has declined 10% from school year 20 to school year 24 to a total of 64,867 students. Over a similar time span, statewide membership has also been decreasing around 3%. And so as you can see from the bar chart we have here, charter school enrollment has declined only 62 students, and district K through 12 membership decreased just over 1,100 students. There is an increase in district pre-K enrollment from last year due to pre-K expansion that we've been utilizing in the district. Please note that all enrollment data for the rest of this presentation is unaudited and will be finalized at the end of November. Preliminary enrollment for pre-K is coming in around 400 students below capacity. Currently, one major driver of the higher capacity is Jeffco must hold empty seats for IEP students that can be identified throughout the year. Also noted here is that student-to-teacher ratio must be maintained at 10-to-1 in all classrooms, even in the underutilized afternoon classrooms. District enrollment matriculation patterns continued as we anticipated. Membership averages around 6,400 in elementary and 7,400 in middle schools. The enrollment adjustment in middle schools is mostly complete, and high school enrollment will continue to adjust to the new smaller grade levels. The preliminary district October count enrollment of 64,867 is around 880 students higher than the projected enrollment that was used to build out the 23-24 adopted revenue budget. This increase will impact revenue, which we will cover later in the presentation. So now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hanks to cover the ROFS enrollment impacts.
So obviously we closed several schools last year, and tonight I'm going to give you an update on where those kids went and if we retained any. Basically 94 different schools in Jeffco received, including charters, received kids that were dispersed from the closing of the schools. 82% of those kids received were our district schools. Out of district, we got 16%, and charter schools, about 2% received those kids. The top 5 receiving schools, and the numbers you could see there, were Lasley, Ryan, Prospect Valley, Lucas, and Lombard. This chart, this bar graph shows the percent of students retained at a receiving school from the closing school. So Ryan received 90% of the kids that were at Sheridan Green, which is phenomenal. And then you can see it work its way down. And keep in mind, Vanderhoof and Fremont, obviously those two were divided when Campbell closed. Those schools split. So that's very good news that we were able to retain schools, kids at those receiving schools from that closed school, which was a worry of many district staff. And this slide shows the membership retention district-wide by closing school. So it lists the schools that were closed and how many students were retained at a district school, regardless of whether it was the receiving school or another neighborhood school or charter or option. So you can see the district did very well in keeping kids from those closed schools. And now I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy Felker, who's going to talk about student withdrawal data.
In reviewing our student withdrawal data, we analyzed Infinite Campus withdrawals from the 22-23 starter school to the 23-24 starter school year, and looked at the district managed school staff data that was entered on withdrawals. The top withdrawals were transferred to another Colorado school district with 1,746, followed by transfer to another state with 778 withdrawals. In analyzing the detailed data entered by district staff, we identified the top receiving Colorado school districts, the top receiving Colorado schools, and the top receiving states. In reviewing the choice enrollment in and out of Jeffco per CDE's October count data, while we see some fluctuations over the past 3 years, more students continue to choice into Jeffco than out of Jeffco. This slide identifies the non-Jeffco schools with 50+ Jeffco residents per CDE's October count data and their 3-year trend data. And finally, we reviewed the home-based education students registered by Jeffco by grade level. There are 1,472 home-based education students registered this year, which is an increase of 208 students from the prior year. The largest year-over-year increase is in the elementary grade level. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Salmons.
Thank you, Mr. Felker. Okay, so now we're going to go into how this enrollment will be impacting our revenue. So the first thing we have to do, we have to convert the district membership to the funded count. And to start this process, we must adjust the district FTE by reducing all tuition paying students and the portion of the day a part-time student is not attending school. That's the negative 58 students you see there. This number is a lot different from previous years because pre-K is not included in the total program calculations now. So the next step is to calculate what the determine what the 5-year average FTE count would be, and then you would add this count to additional FTEs if necessary. So you can see here Jeffco is now receiving an additional 3,442 students above our actual district FTE count. So as you may remember from slide 7, also long ago, the district projected an enrollment decline of just under 2,000 students. The actual decrease ended up being less at around 1,100 students. Losing fewer students will create a positive revenue variance to the budget of around $3.4 million, with the majority of this revenue increase coming from online enrollment growth. I'd like to point out that there will be additional enrollment data that will be released and finalized in the upcoming months, which will be included in the 24 revised budget presented in January. For transparency, we have included a detailed table comparing the difference between the adopted revenue assumptions and the updated preliminary October enrollment pending budget revenue. The 23-24 adopted budget pre-K revenue was built off the assumption of 2,600 students, which would generate a $24.9 million in revenue. With current enrollment coming in just over 2,100 students, the new forecasted revenue is $20.2 million, a decrease of $4.7 million. CDE has promised additional funding that aligns with historical CPP funding levels of $1.8 million, which will help offset the decrease in revenue due to this enrollment drop. Also, the district has promised to supplement a full day option to 4-year-old families that have only the low income qualifier, which has also impacted the revenue forecast we have. Okay, well, that was all of our presentation we have today, so we're open up for any questions.
Great. Director Reed.
Do we know if the kids who changed districts also changed their address? Like, did they move from Jeffco, so that's why they went to a different district, or did they stay in Jeffco but choice into a different district?
So in reviewing that choice enrollment in and about per CDE data, those could be students we've never seen. So for example, if we have students that are enrolled on the east side of the district next to Littleton, they may choose to choice in early on into Littleton School District and continue to stay there, and they would be reported as a Jeffco resident for Littleton Public Schools. So it can be both. It can be students transferring out, and it can also be students that we have never seen.
Can I add just a tiny bit to that? Because this confuses me sometimes. So this number, this 5,000, right? We've got, 5,100 for 22-23. Those are kids who live in Jeffco. We do know their home address and go somewhere else, like go to a different district. Could be an online school at a different district. You see that number kind of doesn't change that much year over year, right? Like the 5,100 is very similar to the 5,088, right? Those are very close to one another within 20 students. And yet Jeremy showed you that previous slide or 2 back, please. Thank you. 1,700 within a given time frame transferred to another district. So I think right there in between those numbers lies a little bit more of the answer to your question, because we're not really seeing large increases of the number of students who live in Jeffco and go out of district. I would say, this is my supposition, and you know, in short, no, we don't exactly have their addresses, but probably those people actually moved. Right? Because otherwise we would be seeing that 5,100 number go up a lot, right? Okay, so that's how I interpret these two bits kind of together, realizing that there's a lag, right? So, but to Jeremy's point, when he presented the slide, that 5,100 number has kind of stayed very similar, sorry about that, for multiple years. And we often, even our 1,700 number is not that different than what it was in prior years as well. So again, my guess is when we get the latest data, the 23, 24, we're not going to see a massive spike of kids who actually live here and go somewhere else.
Question? Oh, sorry, Mr. Felker, did I cut you off? Okay. Other questions, comments? Dr. Barta?
I was wondering if you could explain, I just think I might not be understanding the slides right. There's a slide that shows how many kids from the closing schools went to the receiving school. Oh, shoot, now I can't find it. And the top one there, for example, Ryan Elementary is 90%, but then on the next slide, Sheridan Green, which was the closing school, says we only retained 75% of the kids, but 90% went. So I'm confused why the difference is.
So this chart is showing how many of those kids were retained regardless of what school they attended last year. They were kept in the district. So they were at a closing school, but so take Pfeiffer, 94% of those kids, regardless of where they went last year, a Jeffco student is attending there this year. The other slide is showing those kids whose student numbers were the same last year as this year that actually stayed in that same that same neighborhood school, even though it closed. So Ryan Elementary kept 90% of the kids that were at Sheridan Green, and retained the kids that went to Ryan as well last year.
So like the Sheridan Green, 75% of the kids from Sheridan Green stayed within a district school.
Yes.
But the other 25%
could have left the district. They could have, moved,
And they're within that 1,700 number count that you were just talking about?
That was from last year's number, right? That was 22. Yeah. We'll know 23, 24 sometime after the first of the year.
Because there's 25% I'm just curious if that made up, if you said that number doesn't change a lot, but we had these closing schools, I'm just curious why it didn't change, even though we had this dynamic system disruption. So hard to track.
I'm sorry to ask this, Brian. Can you go forward one? I see this as like a numerator denominator thing, like what's in here, and so I think the way I read this, because I agree, it's like how do you match these things up? Of kids from Sheridan Green who stayed in the district. So first we take the 100% and we make it 75. Of that remaining number, how many went to Ryan versus somewhere else, right? So this is like 90% of 75%. Does that make sense? So, and to your point, where else did they go? On the following slide, this is actually just a district school. So they might have gone to a charter. So they might still be in our total membership number, right? And again, the 5,100, and I don't want to false advertise, right? It might go up some, right, for next year. But if we actually multiplied all this out and said how many kids and then how many kids went to charters and all the different bits, because these were small schools in the first place, we're starting to get to low numbers in terms of what was the actual complete attrition, if that makes sense. And some of that might be moving. It might be moving out of state. It might be moving to another district, moving. But you're right. Some of it might have been they stayed and they just decided they wanted to go across the district boundary to, if there was a Denver school closer or Westminster school closer. So it's possible, and we will absolutely report back whether that 5,100 number increases any when we get the data, which does lag from the state. But overall, I see the retention numbers here as a success. They're substantially higher, and they also suggest that many of these receiving schools were very were very appealing to families, because these numbers are better than some of the analysis we've done on prior closures. So, for example, when we looked at the Allendale data, it was not as favorable in terms of kids staying in district period and or going to the kind of new boundary school.
I think for the public, we might be able to do a little bit of another step in communicating this, especially this slide. Where do you see slide numbers? Oh, 10, I see it. So slide 10, because like what you just said, Ryan Elementary, I would look at that and think 90% of the kids went to Ryan Elementary, but you've told me of the 75% who didn't leave the district, 90% of them went to Ryan. And like, there's just a missing variable on that slide, because if I look at, for example, Parr Elementary, it says 77% of them stayed in the district. But then when I look at Little, then it says, which is the receiving school, so 68% of that 75 went in there. And so the story just is a little incomplete, I think, on this slide. But I mean, I'm not trying to also, though, not say that this is good news that we were able to retain these kids. I'm just not sure that these charts are telling the story in the way that you kind of told right now. It got a little confusing. Yeah, and just lastly, I think maybe in the future or something, I still just don't understand how those numbers that you were pointing out, 5,100, 1,700, are so steady in the midst of all this change. Like, so to me, I even with what you just said, I still don't understand how we stay so steady when there's been a huge difference in the last year. So maybe later I could understand that again.
Yeah. The other thing, and I think Mr. Felger mentioned this, we're only showing you withdrawals. We're not showing you arrivals. So every year people also move here, right? And so we're showing you some people are moving away, but this is not sort of net of new students. And so, again, we can continue to improve this year after year. So thank you. The feedback is very valuable. What might also be interesting to you is how many brand new to Jeffco students do we enroll each year, because that is ultimately part of the story about why this many students can withdraw, and yet we're not really seeing big fluctuations in kids living here and going somewhere else, right? Which is that choice in, choice out, and we're only seeing, a net loss of, Mr. Sammons, I forgot the number, was it 1,100? Year over year, right? And so clearly those numbers add up to more than 1,100. But again, that's because we have some inflow of brand new students. But I think it's an excellent point, and we'll do better next year.
Well, can I actually ask, so is the impact of closing schools, it sounds like what you're saying had no effect on the normal trends in our district. Because the amount we lost, the amount that we get back stayed steady. So the closing of schools had no impact on those numbers. That's what I'm hearing, but I don't know that that's correct.
The one other way I think about it, and Mr. Sammons, you probably have the data better than I do, is I also was interested in just overall across all elementary, right? Because given that students went to 94 different schools, I need to think of it as like a system, right? So please.
That sounds fine, but I don't know what the answer is. Did closing schools have an impact on our on this story? So I get that, like, if we just put it all together, maybe it all is a wash, but I just still don't know, do closing schools impact our retention and leaving of kids from our district? I just don't know based on all this, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, I was taking notes. Other questions, comments? It's very tepid, Director Miller. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to keep following up on that. But overall, when we're doing for a budget perspective and money that's coming into us, I'm looking at what you gave us, which said, hey, we have 64,867 children that are in our district K-12 schools. And last year we had 65,980, and we lost, therefore, overall in our schools about 1,100 kids. That's better than what we were expecting because we thought we were going to lose more children. And whether it was people moving in or hanging out or whatever that is, that's our budget number that we're looking at, right? That's the nugget that we have. I get that. I would like to follow by saying, okay, we know over the past 3-4 years, we have those trends of in and out and what the average 5,500 in, 5,400 out, whatever that is, that's a trend that we should be tracking pretty closely as well. And so we'll see what happens with 23, 24, because that's going to be something that is going to be 5-10 years. We can track that. The number of kiddos that were impacted by the closing of the schools, let's just say hypothetically it was, and I know this is not the right number, but it's 2,000 kids. So that's my denominator, right? That would be the 2,000 children that would be impacted, and wherever they went, they would be the percentage of those children that went to different schools within Jeffco. So that would be interesting to know is how many we actually retained of those number of children that were impacted by those schools. And that's what I think we're trying to find out in this. Is that right? Because we're saying that they went to 90 schools, and so we know that we placed them somewhere. We just need to figure out of those children that were impacted, what that number is that didn't stay with us. And that may not be the 1,700 people, the children. It's just, do we know what that number might be? Am I on the right track? Okay.
So on slide 9, we have the district schools. So we were able to maintain 2,285, so 82% of the students out of the district. So they moved out of the district that we have, so it's 16%, and then 55 students went to the charter school.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so then my follow-up question would be, I think I'm tracking. My follow-up question would be, why did they choose which school? And because if I know national norms, and norms say, okay, safety is critical, academic achievement is critical, and how close is it to where I live or I work, my ease of access and proximity. That would be something that goes right back to our enrollment in general is, why are you choosing where you are going? So if you didn't choose the school that we suggested you go to, if I didn't go to Prospect Valley, I went someplace else, why? And so to me, that's the big question that we keep asking, why our kiddos are choosing someplace else. And I think would be helpful to know.
Yep. So we're in the middle of the boundary study. I think there's 2 questions. Generally speaking, why do families choose whichever school they're in? Right.
Right.
I think the second question I'm hearing is it the same or different for families who are impacted by closure, which we may be able to sort of tease out a little bit through some qualitative work. Right now we have an enrollment survey that is out to all families, plug to our public. If you have not yet taken the enrollment survey, please do so. Can I get a indication of when that closes? The end of the month?
The 17th.
Okay, that survey closes on the 17th, and then there will be analysis done on the results of that survey. We are also then going to be identifying focus groups by different types of families to sit down and talk about their choices and why they're making their choices across different demographic groups, of families and all those things. So that information is coming. I anticipate next semester that we'll have some more information for the board about choice patterns, not just in terms of like choosing outside your boundary, but even for families who are choosing in their boundary school. And so we'll have more information about that. The other thing I want to say just related to this topic is while we wanted to present to you information about which students went where from the closing schools, because we felt that was an important aspect of what you'd asked for, I don't know that the rationale behind the closure of our schools, the why we did it, was necessarily this sort of interest in maintaining or increasing enrollment. It definitely was in the interest of high quality educational programming, so that families would want to stay or want to come. And I think we're moving in that direction. But I just wouldn't anticipate, especially in a declining enrollment environment that we're in, like our projections are that we're declining over the next several years. So I would not be in a place of thinking that the closures in and of themselves were going to maintain or increase our enrollment.
Right. Oh, no, I agree with you 100%. I was just, I'm interested that children went to different places.
Yes.
And I can think of one example and I can think of one example where they were drawing from one part of the school district for a specific program, but they wouldn't necessarily have gone to the elementary school that they were assigned to because it's not in their proximity anymore. So why not stay closer to home? So I will be curious about how that works, candidly. The other big number to me that's disconcerting, and I know we're not the only ones, and that's the people that have moved out of Colorado. Because I think that was probably going to hit not only us, but I'm sure it's Denver and Cherry Creek and other places that are saying, I don't want to stay, I don't have access to whatever, and so I'm leaving. So that's disconcerting, I think, overall for the state, for us. The other question I have, going to the very end, if you could help me a little bit with the shifting in the revenue with the pre-K and the money that we're not receiving and how that's impacting our budget. And so I have questions about the pre-K for a moment. You said that we had 400 seats that are empty, and that we have to keep a certain number of seats open for IEPs. Do we have to keep a certain number of seats open for IEPs by school, or do we have to keep IEPs open for the general students? So if we have served 2,000 pre-K kiddos, what's our percentage that we have to? Is the 400 number the equal to the IEP seats, I guess is my question.
Simple answer to that, no. Okay. But we have to keep the IEPs open across the district. So we might have more seats available in a certain region of the district, but they're actually more IEP students in a different area. Okay. Right. So we have to maintain the seats throughout the whole district. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Partially.
Partially. Okay.
So of the 400 seats, how many of them could be filled by non-IEP kiddos?
So I'm going to look to my colleague, and I don't want to put her on the spot because, to be honest, again, with respect to Mr. Salmons, who spent a good amount of time with our pre-K team to collect this information and do the analysis. Obviously, we're not the owners of it. And it may be that Renee can answer that, but it may not be. It may be that we need to come back to you with just a little bit of information.
I can't tell you how many of the 400 seats, the ratios around that for non-IEP versus IEP. I can tell you we try to reserve up to 5 seats per classroom so that we have an equitable distribution across classrooms for inclusive environments. But I know that our seats that have been reserved for non-IEP students are 95% full, 92% full. Okay. So primarily the open seats we have right now are students with disabilities that we've reserved for.
So we're within a margin of 400 is not a huge number, I guess, is what I'm assuming for.
Sprinkled across all of the 50-some classrooms that we have.
Okay.
Not terribly.
Okay, thank you. And then when I'm looking at the revenue component, and that's where I'm a little confused. So we have the adopted budget with a membership count of the 2,642, which equals the 24.9 million. And we have a lower amount, the 2,100 kiddos. So we have updated the forecast for a decrease of 4.7 million overall. So what is our total adjustment for the budget if we are not down 1,900 kids, but only 1,100 children, and we are down a little bit in terms of the pre-K numbers?
Can you clarify that last part? So you said 1,100. So we have the 1,100 in the K through 12, and then the pre-K also.
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. So the two different buckets of money. Right?
I get that.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
I'm just trying to understand what the overall impact is for the budget. But are we benefiting from the loss of the 1,100 kids instead of the 1,900, and we're still offsetting the $4.7 million loss?
So you guys are probably better at math in your head than I am sometimes. So again, we're going to get this bump in the CBP, the 1.8.
Yeah.
So you take that out of the 4, it makes it about 2.9. It just so happens that our positive revenue variance compared to budget,
right,
still fewer kids, but compared to budget is around, 3.4. So we're the two shifts are slightly offsetting, like we're maybe tiny bit positive, but it's really, really, I want to stress again and again, FRL, ELL, SPED, all these other counts we don't have yet. And so this is by no means my forecast for total revenue variance.
Okay.
It
That's
is
helpful.
one small piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
And again, the other thing that's happening in ECE is it's not just one count. Like it's actually, we can get funded, right? Every month. So if we enroll a kid now, we can get them through the end of the year.
Okay.
And they stay with us, right? So
So we just keep getting money for that.
So that's an even more complicated picture. So any moment in time aspect to pre-K, it could change, right? And so I would like to resist suggesting that this is not my net revenue variance by any stretch. There's multiple variables that Brian and team are going to look at before we give you that.
Okay.
Nothing like a veteran board member to push us to preview our mid-year budget presentation in November.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out our numbers of October count. And that's significant to me because I'm glad that we didn't lose the 1,900 children, at least in the October count. That it's at 1,100. Not that I would like to lose 1,100, but it's not 1,900. So that's where I'm coming from, and I understand why the variances in pre-K, and that's very helpful. And I kind of wish we had 2 counts every year anyway, because we have children come in and we have children leave, and other states have 2 counts, and I would like 2 counts. But okay, well, then we
moved.
So thank you. I appreciate it. I still would like to understand the why, but that's for you all to deal with. So thank you.
This is a little bit of a random question, but has this ever been presented to the legislature on doing 2 counts? I mean, are there districts that advocate for this? I mean, is this okay? But this just doesn't go anywhere because of what, fill in the blank?
I don't know the rationale. To me, it makes sense, but the budget would have to be adjusted, I think, at the state level to be funding kids.
I think it's all wrapped up in the
funding formula,
school finance formula, legislation challenges.
Because some could be winners and some could be losers.
Right. Could be a great hobby for a board member. Explore that. Okay, sorry, I'm off track. Other questions, comments? Yep, Director Parker.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a couple of follow-up questions on pre-K. First is, how do you think the initiative II will impact us that it passed for the pre-K funding? Okay.
I can jump in a little bit.
Okay.
When I believe that we hopefully will, I hope that the state uses those funds to make good on the promise of full day for students with one risk factor, which is something that we are supporting this year with our own funds, given that our families didn't know that that wasn't going to be funded through the state until they'd already started school with us, and we believe it's the right thing to do to support our at-risk students. And so that is the one thing that I will be advocating that the state do with those funds. And then hopefully from there, maybe a little bit more. We'll see how much it generates.
And then secondly, when I have visited some of the schools that have the pre-K classrooms now, they have indicated that they feel that they can't get as many students as they should, meaning that their siblings, maybe younger siblings of kids they already have in their elementary school, because the family needs before and after daycare. And we're not able to provide it at our pre-K classrooms and our schools. So are we missing out? Is there anything we can do about that?
Right now, we actually do offer before and after care at our 2 center programs at Norma Anderson and Campbell. So we do have that available for families, and those sites are not yet full. It can be tricky to offer that, and staffing can be challenging as well. So it's not as easy to offer that care for our preschool kids, but we do have that in 2 of our center programs.
Yeah, and I know that it's tricky, but I'm talking about the families that already have their kiddos at one school and they don't really want to. Well, they are actually taking their preschool or someplace else. But anyway, the next question I have is about that October count and the fact that we only have one of them. And I have talked to a couple schools where I'll hear, oh yeah, we got 4 or 5 more kids, but they came in after the October count. So at the school level, 4 or 5 kids is a big deal for their funding, really big deal. So I'm wondering, do we track that at all? Have we thought about what we can do in the absence of a 2 count day?
So I can speak up here. So we've been tracking in my office the October counts. Jeremy's team sends it to my team every Tuesday. And so what we do, for SBB, we utilize October 2nd, the actual count day, to fund the schools in the SBB October adjustment. From that day to last Tuesday, we've actually lost 64 students. So our schools are actually been funded at a higher watermark than actually what October count will be bringing in. So that's what our goal of our district is, to have the money in the schools. And so we use October 2nd because it is a high watermark of our enrollment that we have.
I'd just like to add that it's more complicated than just having one count. The state has complicated rules on how we can count students, and oftentimes the requirements are documentation around that. So it's not only the time, it's also the more services we provide a student, the more documentation we have to provide the auditor to ensure we're getting funded full time. So October count is not only complicated in the one count, but also the bureaucracy they put around counting students.
And Brian, in 1 week or so, it's about a month, we lost 64 kids? Is that
yes, and it could be
usual?
It is, and it could be similar to the documentation that Jeremy's just mentioning, right? So a student could be in the building and then leave, and then the audit goes through, and then we determine through the October count audit process that we submit to the state that student won't be counted. But that student was in the building at the time, because we take a membership count as of a certain date, so my team can push the funding out to the schools as quick as possible for October adjustments for SBB.
Thanks.
Other questions? Comments? Okay. Thank you all for your work. See you back here at some point. Or they will. They will. They're going to grill you next time. Short break, and then we'll finish the agenda or roll. I just am trying to gauge. What do you need? Good? Great. All right, we're going to keep going. So we are going to move on. I'm going to figure out where I am in my things. To leadership updates, and then we will have the annual superintendent evaluation and consent agenda, and that will round out our evening. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Superintendent Dorland.
Great. Thank you, President Schooley. And this will count a little bit as my comments for the next agenda item, which is the superintendent's evaluation as well. And so I just want to begin by saying that tonight the board will consider my annual superintendent evaluation. The last year of work has been tremendous, and I've had a large sense of pride in our staff for the work that we've accomplished. As I reflected on the work in preparation for the evaluation process, it was abundantly clear that the work is a shared commitment between me, our board, our cabinet team, our school leaders, our teachers, our educational support employees, our students, and also our parents and community members. Thank you to all of our staff, families, and students, and community members for their partnership as we have worked diligently to do important work and provide foundational systems for Jeffco Public Schools. When I started, I talked about trying to find that just right balance between system coherence and school-based autonomy. And as I reflected going into the evaluation conversation, I think we're getting closer to that balance, and that feels really good. And I see the evidence of that in our schools. When I accepted this position in April of 2021, I expressed my interest in committing to Jeffco for an elongated period of time. I had watched from my seat as a mom how the impact of constant leadership turnover impacted our schools and our community. I am now grateful for the opportunity to provide more consistent and stable leadership for our district. And tonight, I get to acknowledge that this is the last board meeting for 2 board members who were part of the board's decision to give me this incredible opportunity. Stephanie and Susan, thank you both sincerely for being part of the decision to open this door for me to serve our community in the role of superintendent. I am very grateful to you both. Also, I'd like to express gratitude for your service to Jeffco Schools and our community. Your leadership, marked by collaboration, commitment, and most importantly, courage, has helped Jeffco grow in so many ways. Thanks to your leadership, we are better today than when you joined the board 4 years ago. Mahatma Gandhi said, "The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others." I believe this quote applies perfectly to the service provided by school board members. I hope that the experience of serving our community as an elected board member has allowed you both to learn not only about our community, our district, and our amazing schools, but also about yourself, your talents and gifts, and what you want for your path forward. Thank you so much for your service.
Thank you. All right, board members, is there anyone that would like to kick us off with board comments and then more board comments? And more board, and 4 more times. Okay, Director Parker.
Thank you. Well, it's been 2 months, I think, since we did this. So I'm just going to go a little bit chronologically. Some of the really interesting things that I did in the last 2 months. I attended a couple Zoom meetings about some legislation that's going to be presented to our state legislature on weight-based bullying. So they want to update the bullying statutes to include, and they haven't really identified yet how to say body type, body image, body something. They started out with it, calling it weight-based. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. Some really good buy-in from different stakeholders there. Also, I have been attending some webinars so far. I've been to 3 of them, put on by Brave Ed, and it's benefits-based budgeting. So it's kind of fascinating on twist and figuring out how to evaluate school districts. And they take surveys that they've asked parents and, what do you expect out of a school? What do you want? So that we can measure to see if you're getting it for your children. And one of the first things they said in the first session was nobody said, I want them to get a high score on a standardized test. So no parent ever answered that question with that. And yet that's our main thing that we evaluate our schools on. So it's an interesting concept of how to incorporate some other values and priorities of our parents in our community. So I haven't gotten to the end yet, so I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how we get there. I also went to the first Summit Jeffco. That was fun. And started going to school visits, which I always love. Been going to several committee meetings. Also went to the meeting with the county commissioners, which is always interesting. They're very, very, everybody wants to know, what are you doing with your buildings? What are you going to do with the property? Also, I went to the CASB convention at Glenwood Springs, which is always eye-opening to see where we fit in the whole spectrum of different school districts throughout the state. I attended a student candidate forum for the candidates, the school board candidates, and that was from our school leadership, the student leadership, which was very exciting to see them in charge of that at Chatfield High School. I went with Director Miller to Jeffco Eats, volunteered there. That was quite the process. They have it down pat, and they identified all our Title I schools and exactly what their needs were, what their preferences were for family foods. Went to the 10th grade career expo that we celebrated tonight. Went to a Chatfield area SAC meeting and likes to give feedback on that to the superintendent. That school district there, that articulation area, was so excited about the new alignment of the community soups now being by articulation area. They appreciated the curricula support they've got and the learning walks. Is that what you? Yes. So anyway, a lot of exciting things they were happy about. Start times was not one of them, but there were a lot of things that they did like. Went to the Arvada Jeffco School District meeting we had recently, again talking about property disposition and then I just want to take this opportunity also to thank Susan and Stephanie. It's been great, right in the middle of you two. And I want to tell you, Susan, your expertise is going to be missed big time. I mean, I cannot believe the career you've had in this area. And so I do have your number. I will be calling. So thank you for that. Yes.
Promise in the thread.
Yeah. And Stephanie, I don't know, you're way too happy. And I learned today that she knows the words to every song and for any sitcoms from the 80s. So, and she's happy to sing them too. So anyway, I will miss your leadership. So wish you guys well.
Thanks, Director Parker. Anyone else? Making your way? Just kidding. Director Reed.
All right. Well, I've had a chance to visit the Bergens and Wilmot, Marshdale, Elk Creek, West Jeff, Parmalee, and Rooney Valley Elementary Schools, and West Jeff Middle School and Conifer High School. So it's nice to be getting back to schools and back to visiting with kids and teachers and, lots of concerns certainly that people have given me, but also lots of things that they feel really good about. And I do think that it's pretty clear that those elementary school curriculum shifts have been deeply appreciated. And it's the feedback on start times has been interesting. What I'm hearing often from principals is that it's fine for the kids. It's the adults that are struggling with it. But overall, I think things are looking really good in our schools. I just want to let you guys know, and for our listening public as well, I'm the board liaison for the Jeffco Schools Foundation, and it's a wonderful organization. They do a lot of funding support for our district that is outside of our normal revenue sources. And they provide grants to teachers for things. They provide food for events that we do for communities and for staff. So they do a lot to support our schools. And more visibly, the arts is a huge part of that. So the Jeffco Costume Center, all the lovely art that you see behind you that comes from the art events that they put together. So lots of great stuff. Right now we've got the Jeffco Gives, or I'm sorry, the Colorado Gives program going on from November 1st to December 5th. And if you would like to support the Jeffco Schools Foundation, you can go to coloradogives.org/donate/JSF, Jeffco Schools Foundation. And they need the money, and they do great things for our schools and for our kids with that money. Last Monday, I was able to attend the kickoff for a brand new advisory committee, the Equity Advisory Committee. And it was really exciting, great energy in the room. I can tell you that the overriding theme that I heard is that it's really important to the people who are putting in their time and some of their emotional vulnerability that comes with that, that this creates real change. Not just talking about equity, but really removing barriers for all kinds of students, whether that's students who are neurodiverse or students with different identities or different cultures. And so I am very excited that we are doing this. I think putting together this committee is a first solid step in that direction that says that Jeffco is really serious about equity. And I'm just super excited to see the ideas that they come up with, because I do believe that we will implement those. And I certainly intend to push to implement some of those ideas, because I think we've done a lot. We worked really hard. We've worked with our SBB funding to be equitable and those kinds of things. But for example, when we look at the distribution of our students in GT, it's clear that we do still have work to do. So I'm excited to be part of that work. I want to remind folks, if you haven't seen it, if you are interested, I have a town hall at 5:30 at Golden High School on Wednesday, November 15th. So it's an opportunity to interact with certainly folks in my district, but I don't think it necessarily matters. I think, if you look at all of our town halls and you can't make your district, but you want to go to another one, you can certainly do that. So I'm hoping that I will see lots of folks there. And then finally, I want to also wrap up with a thank you to both Susan and to Stephanie. It has been such an honor to serve with both of you. And you've brought very different gifts to the table, but you have absolutely both brought really important gifts that will echo far beyond you. Susan, I've learned from you to look more sharply at the consent agenda than I might have otherwise. And Stephanie, working with you on policy, while it is not sexy, is super important. And I appreciated being able to be a part of that. I think the influence of both of you will be felt for a very long time to come. And the other thing that makes it such a privilege being on this board is, as people ask me, what's it like being on the school board? And they're looking often at the national level, or they're looking at the stuff that's showing up more in the news. And, isn't it terrible? Isn't it full of conflict? And it's like, no, I genuinely respect every single person that I'm serving with, and I feel respected in return. And I think that we have demonstrated that here, and I think that it has extended into what public comment looks like, what the tone of the emails that we get, all of those things. What it says is, here in Jeffco, we may not always agree, but we are civil and we respect each other's gifts. And it's just been so wonderful serving in this environment. And I thank you both so much for your contributions to it.
Director Reed. Dr. Berta.
I'm going to go very short. On Fridays, I visit schools, and I have done that, I think, every Friday for the last few months. So I'm almost through all of mine and will visit all of the rest in the next couple of weeks. And the only thing I was going to mention was having, I also have we all have a town hall coming up, Mary and Paula and I. There's dates for that, but I would just encourage people to go to that. And I don't really have a lot of commentary, I guess, on all the different things, but I've just really loved being in the schools again and getting to spend really devoted time doing that work. So, that will be really different next month with the both of you gone. It's been really interesting and fun to have you as colleagues on this board, and I think you both will do really amazing things next. And Stephanie, thank you for your leadership as president. It's been hard to, I think, manage the processes that we've gone through, especially the school closures, and I just think you did that with grace and helped us, really guided us through all of that, so thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Berta. All right, Dr. Miller. I flipped a coin and you lost. Just kidding.
Yeah, you get to do the long. I do want to. I will go through the list of every place that I've gone, but I will say that I have enjoyed the football games and the music and the and what the children have been doing and students have been doing. It's wonderful to be back to normal, as normal can be. I do want to also thank all of you. 2 years ago, when the three of you all came onto the board, and Tracy has been new, we were at a really big crossroads. And we had significant challenges before us. And we went through that with, I don't think any of us knew what was coming at us. I think we got wave after wave after wave of everything from financial challenges to enrollment challenges to, candidly, the can had been kicked so far. And we had to make it stop. And that was probably, I think, the hardest lift that any board would do after COVID, and then after starting strategy work. And then we implemented, we can go through that list, but we implemented curriculum, and then we did math, and then we did start times. And any of those 3 or 4 things would be enough for one board to do over a span of 3 or 4 years, let alone 2 years. And the work, I would like to echo that all of us, I think, brought different skills and lenses and talents to that work. And so I would like to honor each and every one of you for all of that effort and coming up to speed so very, very fast. I know it was like a water hose for all of us, but we did work together and we were respectful and we did stick together for the purpose of children. And I think that's what exemplifies this board, is that we stayed focused on the children most importantly. So thank you all very much. It was an honor. I do have one little thing I would like to say, though, for kiddos. So during the 4 years that I've served on the Jeffco Board of Education, I've seen lots of championship teams and student awards come to our meetings and receive recognition and congratulations. And as I leave the board, I'd like to offer recognition and congratulations to all of the other Jeffco teams and athletes and student participants and all the extracurricular activities and the leaders and teachers that took care of them and led them through those processes or through those activities. And over the last 12 years, I've attended a lot of Jeffco games and art shows and concerts and events, and it's been an honor. I've seen how hard our students and their coaches and advisors work and how they give it their all. And most importantly, I've seen how even when they don't win a game or a prize or a championship, they all kept working hard to improve day after day and week after week. And over my career, I've seen how that hard effort develops the determination, discipline, and resiliency that will serve all of our children, all of you well after you graduate from high school and from Jefferson County schools. And now that they are adults, I think my children, all 4 of them, would probably say that in retrospect, they learned as much or more from playing on teams that didn't win the championships as those that did. And I hope this is true for every single Jeffco student who participates in any extracurricular activity. And I'm going to echo what Michelle Applegate said this evening. Back in 1910, Teddy Roosevelt recognized this in his famous Man in the Arena speech. As Roosevelt said, "It is not the critic who counts, not the person who points out how the strong stumble or where they could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man or woman who is actually in the arena, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends themselves in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if they fail, at least fails while daring greatly, so that their place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat." And I kind of think that's what all of our children, as they walk through our schools, needs to experience. So to our artists, musicians, actors, athletes, and their coaches and advisors, I say this: thank you. Thank you for the courage and the grit you show every day, and for being an inspiration to us all. And it has been an honor to serve you.
Thank you, Director Miller. Well, you all should be terrified because I actually wrote stuff down to say, and I have never, this is the first time in 4 years I've written something down before speaking, so buckle up. Here we go. No, it actually is not very long. So just to start by saying it does feel strange to be our final meeting. It's sort of the never-ending 4 years that is suddenly ending prior to the peaceful transfer of power. And congratulations to those who will be incoming board members, and thank you to everyone that ran. The past 4 years, as we have heard, have brought some pretty unprecedented challenges to this board table. And I know that there is not universal agreement that the actions that we took as a board were the right ones to make. And I absolutely understand that. But what I do hope that there's greater agreement on is the integrity with which this board acted and the care that we took in making really hard choices. I am extremely proud to have been able to lead during those times and be a colleague with you all. And I hopefully was able to do so with some humility and humanity in the process. To educators and support staff, thank you, just as a blanket statement, for the countless moments of teaching, mentoring, transporting, feeding, supporting, keeping safe, and advocating on behalf of our students, the 9 million things that are on the job description so that they have what they need to achieve their biggest dreams, which is what we set as our vision. You make that happen on a daily basis, and I appreciate you. To all the cabinet members and central staff, thank you for what you have shared with all of us, but I'll speak for myself, with me, and your expertise, your time, your response to a lot of questions to clarify and really help this board make good, thoughtful decisions. We rely on that partnership, and I really appreciate you all and the service that you provide to schools. All right, board members, thank you for being my colleagues and advisors. It's a dual role you play. I feel like being a school board member is a really strange journey. It's both very public and very isolating, all wrapped up in a weird bow that you can't sometimes unwind. I've been honored to serve with each and every one of you, and including previous board members, and I can't tell you what a privilege it is to be able to represent this district alongside you. Danielle, you have provided so many examples of how to lean in to challenges and questions, look for solutions in uncommon places, look around corners and under desks to see if we're really thinking strategically and thoughtfully about our decisions, and always advocating for community voice and involvement in the process. So thank you. Paula, you've shown all of us what a lifetime of service to students looks like, and how those experiences as an educator inform both your super thoughtful decision making and your deep sense of compassion for people. Susan, I'm like, I only laugh because we've been through such a journey over the past 4 years, but someone used this word before, and it absolutely is right. You've taught me about dogged dedication. persistence and perseverance to reach answers that you feel like are so critical for our students, to improving systems that benefit all of our kids, not kids, young people, and how people that don't always start with a shared perspective on how things should be at the end of the day can absolutely work together effectively as partners for some very strong shared interests. And it's been a huge lesson for me. And Mary, you've shown me how we can all continue to show up for children in multiple ways as an engaged member of your community, our community, speaking out, speaking up, showing up for kids, young people, and being a voice for those who may not feel or actually are not represented and included. And it's such a critical voice, and you've spent a lifetime doing it. Thank you, sincerely, to you all. And to our superintendent, thank you for saying yes to the job, first of all. Big thanks for that. I'm so happy to have been on the board that hired you and to serve as president of this current board in partnership with you, which is truly what it feels like. I remember I called a former superintendent, I'm not naming names, but at the start of my term of service and asked what I needed to understand about board superintendent relationships so I could, be thoughtful about it. And I was basically told there's just always tension between superintendents and boards. There's friction and sometimes the direction, sort of politics and policy of the board and direction, management, and leadership of the district, and the work of the superintendent, which is sort of how I was framing, my early year on the board. The intention that you came into Jeffco with as a superintendent to truly work collaboratively with the Board of Education as partners, to me, has been outstanding. I feel like we have been able to have honest and critical conversations about very difficult topics impacting our district because of that intention and because of how you lead. I have appreciated being hopefully a thought partner with you, sometimes agreeing, sometimes working through differing opinions and perspectives about things, which is the good stuff. Getting to know you as a friend and a confidant, and working together to set a clear direction for Jeffco. And I'm so excited about the direction of this district under your leadership. And so I will conclude finally with my family and friends, the millions of viewers on live stream that are tuning in to watch this epic speech. No. But to my friends and family, they have had to endure 4 years of me basically mumbling to myself, sometimes yelling out loud. Sometimes I would talk through issues with an actual human, but other times by myself, sometimes around a fire pit in a backyard. These are individuals that have helped me celebrate successes and really encouraged me to trust myself as a leader. And it's not a competition, but I definitely have the best friends and champions on the whole planet. So there you go. And to my family, they've shown me an amazing amount of grace as I've missed plays, athletic games, PTA meetings, bailed on morning carpool. Sorry to everybody in the carpool. Sometimes missed dinner, definitely did not help with homework, which is probably okay for the homework because my last math class was in 1992. And I have no idea what illustrative math is trying to tell me to do with my kid. However, we got through it okay. My kids have grown up with me as a school board member, essentially. They were in 3rd and 6th grades when I started, and now they're kicking butt and taking names as 7th and 10th graders. They are by far the coolest creatures that I know, and I'm looking forward to being so present in their lives that they'll encourage me to run for office in some other capacity, so I'll leave them alone. And finally, to my main squeeze, my boo, Paul, he's going to kill me if he ever hears this. He's amazing, and I'm keeping him forever. So I will miss a lot of what we do here. I will miss a lot of it. Not all of it, but I'm going to miss a lot of it. But I'm going to sleep like a champ, knowing that you all have it completely under control and will continue to act in the best interests of students with integrity. And I'm just so proud of everything we've done. So thank you. All right. That's it. That's not it. We're still talking, but we still have agenda items. All right. Now we'll talk about the superintendent some more. So tonight, the Board of Education will vote on the 2023 annual superintendent evaluation. On October 25th, the board conducted a formal summative evaluation of the superintendent in exec session. The summative evaluation was based upon data derived during the year from monitoring board policies on ends and executive limitations. A written evaluation document has been prepared by the board, and the superintendent has had the opportunity to review the document. Prior to the report being signed by the superintendent and the president of the board, I'd like to give you a chance to make a statement or say anything you would like to say.
At this time, I think I'm just going to let you guys have the conversation. I made some comments during my superintendent update, and we'll just reiterate from that moment a thank you to Susan and Stephanie for being part of the board that gave me this incredible opportunity. And for the rest of you, I know we had some detailed conversation a couple of weeks ago, maybe just last week. Feels like a month ago, but it was probably just last week where I was able to go through my reflections, and the amount, I think both Susan and Stephanie captured it well in talking about the amount of work we've done together is pretty incredible. When I talk to other superintendents or they talk to me, I do think there is recognition in many conversations I have with my colleagues about the strength of the Jeffco board. And so much of the work that I was able to reflect on is definitely in partnership with all of you. And Stephanie, I thank you for the comments that you made, because I really truly believe that this work is a partnership with our community. We can't do it alone as staff, and having elected officials who support us, but also push us and are willing to engage in, debate and conversation with us and with each other in respectful ways is something to be really proud of. Not only related to my evaluation, because I think I have something to do with that. Thank you for acknowledging that. But you guys all do too. And so I just appreciate the partnership. I am truly blessed to have this job. I have loved working side by side with you as our board president, and your ability to support me in building partnership between us, but also making sure that your board colleagues have a voice at the table makes my job easier. Because at the end of the day, everybody deserves to be heard. Everybody deserves to have their perspective about the very difficult issues that we are dealing with and making decisions about. And so I really appreciate that partnership. I'm going to miss you and the side-by-side work that we've done together in the interest of our community. So thank you.
So we'll go ahead and ask for a motion on the evaluation, then we can have discussion as part of that. So is there a motion to approve the 2023 annual superintendent evaluation?
I move to approve the 2023 annual superintendent evaluation as presented in board docs.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion, board members? I know we've had an opportunity to have conversations with our superintendent and with one another, but I want to open up the floor to any further discussion or comments. Director Miller.
Yes, I want to focus on, once again, maybe reiterating what I said earlier, but we are facing, just like so many other school districts across the country, many challenges. Financial challenges, academic challenges related to enrollment, changing curriculum. We need more at the higher level of secondary for changes for curriculum as well. And I just want to say that Superintendent Dorland, you have, along with all of your staff and your team, have faced once again, some pretty hefty headwinds. That I give you credit for the people that you've brought on to help us, to lead us, all the talent that sits at this table to our right, or tables, I should say, to our right, are a reflection of people who want to come and work for you and for children. And that is a testimony to who you are and to the work that you are doing, because they all want to do the work with children, and they're doing it in some unprecedented times. So I believe that there's a lot of changes going on, but there's a lot of hope. And I want to continue to support that hope and those changes. And so with vigor and excitement, I'm trying to think of good vocabulary words and they're coming, but I'm excited for the continued work. And I would hope that the team that is here and the additions that are coming online are going to be carrying forward along with the great team that you have over here, once again, to my right, the two tables, because I think you've got a great momentum going, and I don't want to see it stopped. So I'm excited to agree, or whatever the phrase is, to acknowledge that I would like to extend the board work and commemorate all that you have done. And thank you very much for this. And that's my superintendent review.
And I'm well summarized. Thank you, Director Miller. Other board members, any other comments or discussion? Sure, Dr. Berta.
I thank you for your leadership, and I think it's been helpful to have so much room to have space with you to have conversations, whether they're a quick text to keep us informed, or our key initiatives meeting where we get to bring the teams together and really learn. And I really appreciate that kind of access to the cabinet and to you. And also, I do have lots of questions, and I like that I can ask them all, and it's just a matter of fact, like we're just trying to do good things for kids. And so asking all the questions, I think, is welcomed and help, I think it's just been a good environment that I think you've created for us as a board to be able to interact with lots of people within this district. And so I appreciate that. We talked about a few things in our evaluation meeting of, things we hope to continue working on, things I hope we expand on, and I think you're going to lead us through those things. So I have a lot of confidence in where we're going, and look forward to the next 2 years a little and sometimes a lot. Just really pleased to be able to support your evaluation.
Great. Any other comments or clarifications? Director Parker.
I just want to say that I really credit Superintendent Dorland for the smooth functioning of our board meetings. I know that our esteemed president is the one who looks like she's in charge of everything and just moving things right along. But there was a lot of work that came beforehand, and I feel like I have come to every meeting. I've never been. Yes, exactly. The two sets of tables off to my right. The team, yeah. But I feel like I've never been surprised at a board meeting. And I look at some other boards meetings, online. I'm watching them live, and it seems like something came up that nobody knew was happening. And it's not a pretty look. So I appreciate very much how prepared we seem to be. We are. I'm tired too. Anyway, I appreciate that.
Director Reed.
I think there are so many things to appreciate, Tracy, about the job that you've done. It's been exceptional. I think it would have been easy when you came in, given all the turmoil of COVID and everything else. It would have been really easy to take the safe path and to kick cans down the road because it was not politically expedient, i.e. not comfortable to deal with it. And I appreciate your willingness to be uncomfortable and to companion us in being uncomfortable, in making some very, very hard, very necessary decisions, and really making sure that we always felt well informed. Not only was I never surprised, I've always felt informed walking into meetings, feeling like I was given thorough information and an opportunity to ask questions. And I foresee continued success working together.
Ditto. That's my comments. We've had a whole lot of opportunities to talk about it, but it is really awesome, and I just can't wait to see what the next few years have to go. And hopefully no one gets scared because everyone's like, oh, God, no more initiatives, no more big things coming down. But there is that balance of urgency with the speed of trust and bringing people along. And I appreciate that you carry that balance in your mind as we're moving forward with some pretty big stuff for students. So thank you. All right, it has been moved and seconded that the board approve the 2023 annual superintendent evaluation as presented in board docs. Roll call, please, Ms. Savada.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Ms. Schooley?
Yes.
Yes.
It is approved. So it shall be. Okay. And then our last, right? Correct. I just totally lost my train. The train stopped. Part of the agenda is the consent agenda. Items 7.01 through 7.23 are presented in board docs as a proposed consent agenda. Do I have a motion regarding the approval of the consent agenda?
I move to approve items 7.01 through 7.23 on the consent agenda as published in board docs.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion, board members? Director Miller?
I just have one, and it's in reference to 7.20, which is the adoption of the revised appropriation in regards to Fletcher Miller. And I want to raise up Fletcher Miller as a very, very important investment for our most vulnerable students that we serve, not only here within Jefferson County, but so many other families rely on that, those teachers and the administration and the amazing work that they do. And that school is no longer serving those children. And I want to support, and I know we're looking at different ways to bring it forward, but I really want to lift up and thank everybody for all the work that they've done to identify how we're going to get it done. And it was one of my flagships, and I really appreciate everything, Matt, that you did, that Julie did, that staff has done, and they walked us through those buildings, and I think we all had our eyes opened. And so thank you to all of you all too for supporting that, because I think it is truly a critical building for our children that are in greatest need. So thank you very much for all the work.
Great, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, it has been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Roll call, please, Ms. Savada.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Ms. Schooley?
Yes.
Dr. Varda?
Yes.
All right, the consent agenda has been approved. That brings us to the end of today's agenda. We'll stand adjourned. The next meeting is a special meeting scheduled at 5 p.m. on December 5th at the Ed Center. Here, watch this.